Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Huddle, Postgame Huddle. I am Tony Gerdeman here. I got Devin Radcliffe along with me here, as you see there, following Ohio State's 45-12 win over Arkansas State. A victory that, a little disjointed at times. I think second game of the season, you're going to have that. Devin, what I was most interested in seeing today was how the defense reacted to playing against a more up-tempo, a more spread offense. And we saw some missed tackles out there today.
Yeah, definitely did. I'll just start by saying, I think in our pregame predictions this week, this was kind of looked like a hangover game, as they say. You know, you're coming off a huge game against Notre Dame, big win. How's the team going to respond? And like you said, they saw some kind of that, missed tackles, open field. Happen in the game. The thing I was most encouraged by, to put a positive spin on it, is after big plays, and we heard Jim Knowles speak on this last week, the defense responded. You know what they kicked 4 field goals? Now, I'm not sure the red zone trips they had, but 12 points, 4 field goals, that's nothing to take for granted. You know, that easily could have been 28 points with some of the explosive plays that Arkansas State was able to create. So despite the missed tackles, Ohio State's defense demonstrated they're able to buckle down, tighten down, and limit them to only four field goals.
Yeah, that was interesting because despite the missed tackles, it still very much looked like Jim Knowles' defense. It looked like the Ohio State defense because there were plenty of guys around. They were, as you said, they would come back from a bad play and make a good play. They were in the backfield. They were getting after it. They held Arkansas State to 53 yards rushing on 34 carries, and there were only 2 sacks, so that's not a lot of lost yardage due to sacks. It was once again I thought a fast defense because even the missed tackles, they were there, maybe just going a little too fast at times and not slowing down and being more sound. But like overall, you could still see there's plenty to like there. And what did you think about Josh Proctor getting the start and staying in there for so long?
Well, he obviously must have demonstrated to the coaches that he's capable of being a starter in a player form during fall camp, spring ball. So you don't want to make a knee-jerk and lose the guy type reaction because that's going to be a player they're going to need if they're going to make a run at this thing. You don't want you to have 11 guys playing all game, every game. You're going to need to build quality depth and guys that can play and play a lot and play real snaps. And Proctor, last week notwithstanding, has been demonstrated over the course of his career. He's a guy that can play ball at a high level. So you don't want to lose that type of player because of one bad play against Notre Dame. So it's nice to see him get back out there and play some real meaningful and productive snaps on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think like last week they were sent a message as we listened into the sound coming over from the press conference. But I thought they sent a message to Josh last week and to the team by sitting him, but then also another message this week by playing him. Like he was out there, he was starting, he played most of the game, played well. I didn't see anything that he did where he didn't have Denzel Burke's bad day. Let's just say that. And that was another instance where Denzel Burke makes some mistakes, and they pulled him for Ja'Kalen Johnson. Mm-hmm. Ja'Kalen Johnson was out there, and that's 2 weeks in a row we've seen these messages sent. And I don't really remember when. It's been a long time since I remember them doing things like that, where if you make a mistake, they're going to yank you. And I think it showcases the depth and the standard that they want to have on defense.
Well, it's about setting expectations, especially when you got a new defensive coordinator coming in like Jim Knowles, that, hey, if we're going to compete at a high level and make a run at a national championship, this is the expectation we have. And you don't meet them, we're going to put someone else in there. So, it's, like you said, it's about sending a message, setting expectations. And the other thing I like is they're giving guys an opportunity to get another crack at it. Like I mentioned just a little bit ago, you don't want to lose guys either when you're gonna do this. So, hey, you know what? You messed up. You made it. Whatever happened, missed tackle, blown coverage, etc. This other guy's going to get shot, but get your mind right. We'll put you back out there and give you another crack at it.
Yeah, and we will have, as you can hear, we'll have Ryan Day's press conference and possibly Butch Jones's press conference as well as they come about here in the next few minutes. And then it's going to be a mad scramble in the Ohio State post game as we're going to individual interviews now this week. And so it'll be I'm going to enjoy watching Kevin and Tom try to get everywhere and get to everybody for you guys out there. trying to get as many interviews as possible. The offensive side of the ball, again, you think, well, it's kind of slow, but then you look at the stats and you've got CJ Stroud throwing for 340 some yards. He was 16 of 24, 351 yards, 4 touchdowns. They ran for 168 yards, and it was 6.5 yards carry. There was just, once again, not a lot of snaps for the Ohio State offense. Basically 54 plays on offense. Time of possession, which is a stat that nobody likes, Ohio State had the ball for 22 minutes. And much of that were the big plays. Ohio State had like a 55-second drive and like a minute and 20 drive, things like that. But overall, offensively, you see the drive chart here, just not a lot of time off the clock. But is there anything they can do to, I don't know, just have more plays on offense? Because, and again, they finished with 538 yards of total offense, which is below their average from last year. Is this a matter of just not having enough possessions, not having the ball enough, the opponent keeping the ball from them? How much is that impacting the offense, do you think?
Well, I hate it when you score touchdowns quick. I'm kind of half joking, half serious. When you have explosive players, explosive things happen. So it's one of those things like we're a big playoff. Yeah, tell your guy to fall down, I guess, if you want to win time of possession. But when you're gonna have a big play offense, explosive offense, and blow teams out, this is what's gonna happen. It's not necessarily a time of possession game anymore. Say it was 20 years ago in the trust ball. Hey, we're gonna control the ball, eat clock. You don't recruit the receiver room they have to control the clock. You obviously last week, you go back to last week, sometimes maybe you do need to be able to grind meat, but this week, obviously the explosive plays were there. So let's go ahead, be explosive, put this game out of reach quick, so that they don't have a chance to hang around. So again, it's two, same coin, different sides of the coin, I guess, if you want to use that metaphor. We got explosive players when they're being explosive.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison averaging 26 yards a catch, 7 catches for 184 yards. Both of those are career highs. The 3 touchdowns ties a career high. See, he becomes the second Ohio State Buckeye receiver to ever have 2 games of 3 touchdown catches. He joins Joey Galloway, who did it in 1993 and 1994. Emeka Egbuka, 4 catches, 118 yards, averaging 29.5 yards per catch. They each had catches of over 40 yards. I think Marvin may have had 3 or 2, at least 2. And Cade Stover even had a 35-yarder. So these big chunks of yardage. I was wondering if I expected to see that this week, but wasn't sure if Troy or if Arkansas State was going to stay back and try to avoid that. But those guys are running open today.
It's kind of like I wonder what the Arkansas State defensive meeting room was. You have all last year's film, you've got Notre Dame film, and you're sitting there going, all right, what are we going to do, boys? Are we going to, I'll use some cliches, but are we going to stack the box and force them to throw? Or are we going to play pass first and allow the handoff? I think it's one of those things you're stuck if you do, stuck if you don't, if you will. And we saw today the pass game kind of take off a little bit in the way fans were expecting. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had the big day, Emeka had the big day. This is going to sound crazy this day and age, but CJ Stroud looked very efficient, throwing for 340 yards. What was it, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns? He went. It was another day at the office. Huge numbers by any other standard, and it just looked efficient for CJ Stroud. Was it only 6 incompletions?
He was 16 of 24.
Okay, so 8 incompletions. Oh, 8 incompletions. Yep. CJ, what's going on, man? Only 340 yards. Come on, CJ. But that's just how explosive they are in offense and how good CJ Stroud is and what the expectation is. But second half especially, they just decided, all right, we're done with this. Let's blow the top off and get this game over with.
Yeah, 16 completions, 351 yards passing. So that's 20-something yards of completion. And the day he had 351 yards, it's like an average day for him. Before him or before Dwayne Haskins, that would probably have been a top 10 day in Ohio State history.
That's a career day 7 years ago.
Yeah, now it's just expected.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember watching like Bobby Hoying go crazy for 300 and some yards, and it's like back then you'd be talking about it for a week. Now you're only talking about it because he only completed 67% of his passes.
Yeah, exactly.
And there were a couple that were off, and you get judged when you judge by perfection. It's totally unfair, but yes, quarterbacks will have some throws that are behind the receivers. Bryce Young even does it. I know it's sacrilegious to say these things, but I'm one of these people who keep saying, like, just appreciate what he's doing, because it's not normal. And if you treat it like normal, you're not appreciating it.
The what I like to say is it's like he's playing Xbox. I don't think people take for granted how good CJ Stroud's really been and the pass game's really been. I mean, he's playing Xbox out there right now when you can go 16 to 24, 350, 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's a career day for anybody else, and this is just another day at the office for him.
I'm looking at some of the chat in here, and apparently Texas screwed up and lost to Alabama, I assume, as everybody expected, but not at that close 17-16 score that I saw last. But that was unfortunate for Texas. And Quinn Ewers, I don't know if you saw, got knocked out of the game early on with like a shoulder injury.
I saw the ticker, if you will, that he got knocked out. I actually didn't get a chance to watch any of the game yet. I'll go back and watch that later on. I will say this is one thing we heard about this week and put two conversations together here. With the offense being explosive as it was, obviously the defense is going to be on the field more. And one of the things we heard them talk about this week was building depth. Mm-hmm. If you're going to have an explosive offense, you're going to have a day and you're going to have a game where the offense is scoring it or moving the ball at 20 yards a clip. Defensive guys are going to get gassed, and that's going to create missed tackles just by pure not having enough gas in the tank. So you got to have guys ready to roll in and out and keep that expectation. So there's another thing nice to see that they're able to start building that depth on the defense side of the ball, because they're going to need it as the season progresses.
Yeah, even in the second half, they were playing. Once they got Ja'Kalen Johnson in there and replaced him with Denzel Burke, then later on it was Denzel Burke and Ja'Kalen Johnson playing, and Cameron Brown got a rest. Cody Simon has been rotating in the last 2 weeks. He and Steele Chambers led the team with 6 tackles apiece. Got to see Caden Curry in there late, a true freshman defensive end, making a big play. Just looking through some of these numbers now, Denzel Burke again, not a great day. I gave up some catches, and I think I had an NFL person texting me saying this is kind of one of those 12 p.m. lazy days where corners kind of get bored a little bit, and sometimes
I call it hangover games.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it was, especially coming off of last week. But Mike Hall, another 3 tackles for loss, gets a sack in there and a key play. I don't know if the TV said anything about the injury, but he did walk off. Just another, I don't know if it was a dominating performance by him, because it kind of came in a spurt, but like that guy is just really, really good right now.
Yeah, what did you say the rushing yards were? 30 carries for 50 yards or something?
Yeah, it was like 36 for 52, 34 for 53.
Without getting into, watching it again and breaking down play by play, you just look at that stat line and know the defensive line won that game. And, we can nitpick here and there throughout the week, but when you have a stat line like that, your D-line won. I can tell you that right now without having to look at it again. The other thing that was encouraging to see was Cam Martinez work in there. Not just Ransom and Proctor work back in there, but Cam Martinez got some run in there with the ones, if you will. So they're trying to build more safety depth as well, which is encouraging to see.
Yeah, he had 4 tackles on the day as well. You saw, I was interested to see how Tanner McAllister would play, because he was actually having to defend somebody this week and didn't necessarily have to do that last week. I thought he did well in coverage and had his moments. Just overall, it was you talking about the defensive line, the tackles for loss, 12 on the day for Ohio State. And Tyleik Williams was only credited with 1.5 in here, but I think he was closer to 3. Like he was sharing some at that point, and that was good to see. And JT Tuimoloau with another tackle for loss. Jack Sawyer had a half of a tackle for loss. And do you have any concerns yet about the lack of a pass rush, maybe from the defensive ends?
No, not necessarily, because that'll come. Jim Knowles has got that in his system, if you will, the calls and the scheme to generate that pass rush. Right now, they're just playing. We heard about it right before the season started. Block destruct. Yeah. They're really trying to blow up the blocking scheme, and they're still creating negative plays without the emphasis on the pass rush. So that'll come when the game plan and the call really dictates them to really get that longer stance, get off the ball, and get after the quarterback. Right now, they're playing to play base technique, if you will. They're not really looking to create that get up the field and create the sack by yourself type play yet. But that's in there. That'll come.
Yeah. And if you guys have just joined us, we are still waiting for Ryan Day to hit the podium here. I might expect maybe CJ Stroud first. Generally, when we break them out like this, and it's one or two guys at the podium, because we're going to cocktail tables, as they call them, I think, this week in the post game. So generally, they like to have the head coach and the quarterback in front of everybody so the TV cameras can get them, which means that we can get them. So we'll get those two guys, I think, and then it's going to be a scrum for Tom and Kevin to figure out who else they can get as they walk around with cameras, trying to get in other people's way and get you guys some content there and some video and some interviews. So just looking through some of these. Final for Bama, it was 20-19. Lots of field goals today, and you're not going to beat Alabama with field goals. I think Sark found that out today. Let's see, going through here. Overall, the running game, we got to see some explosion there as well. Trevion Henderson, 10 for 87. Mayan Williams, 8 for 46. He had a 25-yard run. Trevion had a 41-yard run. Emeka had the 27-yard jet sweep. I'm thinking we start seeing more of that. It was interesting that they took him away from kick return because they had him at punt return. They had him doing other things. You know, he was busy as a wide receiver as well. I was hoping we would get to see Chip Trainum actually return some of those kicks that he was getting, but we didn't. But your thoughts on Emeka today?
Questions over here to the right. Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1.
We're going to go to Ryan Day.
Ryan, aside from maybe the difference in opponents, you were never concerned last week about the passing game coming back around. What did you think was different about it today? What did you emphasize throughout this week to get that today?
Well, on defense, they were packing the box, a lot of one-on-one on the outside, middle of the field was available, and so credit them. They were aggressive and they were going to stop our run, and that's the balance that we're looking for. Is that if you're going to try to stop the run, then we have to be able to throw the ball and vice versa. And so I think 2 games you've seen that, like you said, a little bit different opponents. There were some good things there in the past game today.
Over to the left, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
Right, I don't know what happened there with, I guess, Teron at halftime, but it didn't see him come out for the second half. And just in general, some other sluggishness or those problems. It seems like there's a pretty quick accountability this season. Just kind of what message do you think you'd be able to get across this season, the way you address that?
Yeah, when we look at the stat sheet today, it's pretty clear that we gave them 2 possessions. I know one was at the end of the game, but still, we gave them 2 possessions on penalties, or the other was a turnover, and we got to clean those things up. They had 76 plays, and we had 54. We had 54 plays. We had 538 yards on 76 plays. They had 276 yards. So we look at that stat sheet, we say, wow. But with the penalties, we had 9 penalties, and that's unacceptable. We got to get that fixed. And we got to coach better, and we got to put on the field better. So it's going to be against 1 again this week, and it's something we have to get done.
Over to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, the Columbus Dispatch.
Right, you held them out of the end zone, they had some scoring drives. Who were your general assessment of the defense?
Yeah, it was kind of them going break style today, just based on what they were doing. We put them in a bad spot by putting them back on the field when there was a penalty in the punt. They had to stop there. I thought the way we came out the second half was good. We came down, scored, got 3 and out, and that was good, and then scored again. And I thought we could have got a little bit more of that going there in the second half, but didn't quite finish it the way that we would have liked to have seen, quite honestly. But there were some good things there. But if we're going to be the team we've got to keep building, keep growing, and there's certain areas that we're going to improve on. But anytime the defense holds another offense from scoring a touchdown, it's going to be a good day for the Buckeyes.
Over to the left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Right, we saw Julian Jackson warming up pregame. What kind of decision did you hope those guys out today?
We just want to make sure that they're 100% before we put them in the game. I'm not part of those things. I just ask, are they 100%? Yes, no, and then we go from there. They're both mature guys, so we'll take their feedback into consideration. But we'd like to get them in the game next week if possible. But we're only going to do that until they're not. We won't do that until they're 100% because we want to make sure we'll keep them safe. It's a long season, but they're getting closer.
Over to the right, Justin Bulbrock, WCMH.
We obviously saw it in the Rose Bowl, but again today, Marvin just stepping up when he needs to. You talked about it last week with Bex. Just what is it like to have that depth and to have a guy of his caliber, so young in his career right now?
Yeah, he's very mature for his age. So is Emeka, but Marvin's route running is, again, very mature for his age. You know, to see somebody that's played as much as he has with just, you know, the high level of route running is pretty remarkable. You know, he had a chance to have 4 touchdowns today, I think, right? He had 3. Yeah, he had one that they called it incompletion. He could have finished that one off. So, you know, the potential's there. You can see the couple plays he made. He did it a bunch of different ways. He caught a couple slants that got us going. I think that's important, is that when we're starting drives now, when we get a couple, you know, easy completions, we get those couple first downs, then all of a sudden we start to roll. And that has been something that's kind of happened to us the first couple of games, couple 3 and outs. We got to do a better job with those. But Marvin was a big part of getting us going, and certainly had a big play capability. And when you're playing against a team that wants to really load the box and pressure on a scrimmage, you got to win the outside, and he did that for us today.
Over to the left, Dan Holt, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Mike Hall left the game in the 3rd quarter. Is he okay? And 5 tackles for loss in 2 weeks. How impressed are you with his performance?
Yeah, no, he did it again this week, and so that's good. That's progress. It's not something that we expect him to save time for. But we'll see once we get an evaluation on the post game. But there wasn't no concern coming out of it. It was going to be long term.
Over to the right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, just sort of the inconsistency a little bit for the offense, like you're talking about. It was a little bit frustrating for you because obviously you're calling plays you think will work, et cetera. You know, it was feast or famine almost.
Yeah, and when you play a style of defense like the one we went up against, it's a little bit that way. You know, even for CJ to be, let's see, he was 16 of 24 for 351. That's about the day that you expect. You know, when you're playing against a defense that kind of, you know, keeps it in front of you, it's usually a high completion percentage game, maybe not as many yards. A defense like this, it's maybe not as high completion percentage, but then all of a sudden one goes for 60 or 40, you have these big plays. And that was kind of the theme today. And so certainly things to clean up. We're nowhere we need to be, but there was improvement in other areas too. So we'll keep growing on it, identify the things we're going to get better at, and keep building. We'll keep working to that balance too.
Yeah, like a TD pass to Emeka. I mean, they brought the safety boom, delayed like streak, and we're seeing.
That was well executed, and I think that's it. Like when we're playing with toughness, we're playing with an edge, we're taking care of the football, and those are all real positive things. But the negative things, you know, get us off schedule, and we just don't quite execute at a high level, then it throws you off. And you know, part of only having 54 plays is because we had to build 3 and outs. And so we're just going to really take a lot of pride in our execution and keep growing on it, keep building on it, and figuring out, you know, as we go through this year, kind of where we're at. But I think you can see the potential for sure.
Over to the left, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you talked a lot this week about competitive stamina. How do you grade how you guys performed in that aspect?
You know, I'd like to see the film before we start grading, because you know, coming out of the game, sometimes you think you see things, and then you kind of step away and you see it through a different lens. But there were certainly things in this game that I would like to see done better, but there was also a lot of good things too. And so what you don't want to do is take winning for granted and take a lot of really hard work and some good performances for granted either. But I know there's going to be a lot of things that we need to look at tomorrow that we got to keep building on, keep growing on, and make improvements.
Last few questions here. Clay Hall, WSYX.
Ryan, that run-pass balance looks almost 50-50. Are you telling yourself during the week we're going to run it more than you usually do?
No. And is that what it was? Yeah.
Well, 24 throws for, I don't know how many Kyle threw.
54, so yeah, 28, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that's what we look for. We look at that balance. I think we were probably 60-40 or more passes last year, which is not what we want to do. We want to be able to control the game, and so no, that's the balance that we need. Now, depending on what a team is doing, sometimes they force your hand a little bit, and that's what you have to. If you want to be a good offense, you have to be able to do that, and that's why we, you know, I called a timeout at the end of the first half, even though it was 4th down at midfield, and maybe it was like, well, you know, why are we calling a timeout to give them more time? But I felt like if we get a stop there, you know, we could work a 2-minute drill, because we need to get that going. If we're going to win it, you know, we have to win a 2-minute drill. That happened last year. It's going to happen again this year. We have to be able to throw the ball, but then we have to win it 4-minute drills and run the ball in short yardage in the red zone. So constantly working towards those things so that we can get to where we need to be. The good news is we've already played a top 5 opponent, so we've already proven ourselves in some areas, but the only way we're going to accomplish our goals is if we keep building and growing and getting better in all these areas.
Caden Curry made 2 or 3 plays there. Any chance you played every D lineman today?
I might have. It seemed like there were a lot of guys out there, but Caden's flashed. Caden plays hard. He's productive. He's one heck of a football player. I'm glad he's a Buckeye, and looking forward to seeing him great out champion.
We're going to stay to the right. Cam T, the athletic.
Ryan, you mentioned that Arkansas State really wanted to stack the box against you guys, but I mean, Trevion average 8 yards carry, mine near 6 yards carry. What to say about those two now back-to-back weeks performing? And then the offensive line, I mean, there are times where those two get into the second level without getting touched.
Yeah, there were some clean runs in there for sure, and some other ones that could have even been cleaner. So, again, we're used to running more than 54 plays. So, if we keep some drive goings and do a better job across the board, then those numbers are probably even different. But I thought they ran hard again, and we'll watch the film and make sure they hit the right holes and figure out what we can improve on. But there were some positives there again.
And last question, over here to the right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Ryan, it seems like you guys played a decent amount of 12 today, and G and Kate had a nice combo, and Trey's touchdown, and Kate had a big catch. Just what have you seen out of that group, especially being down a couple of receivers, with being able to get more of those guys in the field?
Yeah, no, it's been a bright spot. Kate had that nice catch down the sideline. I thought that was really good, and trying to get him more and more involved in the pass game. I thought Mitch has done some really good things, and we're going to keep incorporating those guys. As we continue to build this year, and then seeing G in there. G, we consider him a tight end, and he ran some 12 plays, and so that's good. So those guys deserve to be part of the offense, and we're going to keep building in those areas because our 11 package is our 11 package, but some of these other packages that we can start working on and building on gives us some different diversity that I think we need.
Right. Coach, thank you very much. All right, folks, you asked for it, so we're going to do it. Everyone who's in a chair, just to fold it up and put it onto the side. Need you to go
all right.
orderly.
Are we going to head over to the Arkansas State post game? Is that where we are going now? Oh, okay. So Tom is back into the post game. Looks like. So what they're going to be doing now is moving some chairs and getting everybody situated, and looks like we've got CJ Stroud going up right now to the front.
CJ, how did it feel out there for the passing attack this week, even without Jackson and Julian stuff?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to give all glory to God, man. Just having an opportunity to go out there with my brothers again. Just having health, just every day waking up with that same mindset of just want to be better. So, yeah, I give all glory to God. But it felt good to go back out there, build some more chemistry with those guys. Marvin and Mecca did an amazing job again, including X, and then tight ends got in there a lot more today too, and they did a very decent job with pass game, pass protection as well, and run blocking. So just felt good being back out there. Definitely got to be better in certain things, but I feel like we got the ball rolling on some things too.
How different were the looks that you were getting compared to last week in Notre Dame?
This week, I mean, they were a predominantly quarters team with 32 fire type of pressure team. So I mean, it's just 3D 2 under. With just either Mike and Sam blitz or Mike and Will that we were expecting, and they brought some cornerback Stiller, which is just corner child with a Will. So we knew what we were assuming to get. A little different, but at the same time, I mean, they kind of had, with the 32 fire, some similar looks with Notre Dame. Arkansas State, though, they ran more quarters with press man to the outside, so we try to just go one-on-one with our guys on the outside, and I feel like it worked. Yeah, he just, I mean, every day in practice, man, he just backed it up. No, you're straight. Every day in practice, he just shows how great of an athlete he is, man. He works so hard in our weeks, like Bloody Tuesday, going into Wednesday, third downs, and red zone. Just giving me clean numbers. He's one of the best route runners I've ever played with. So today was just his day to do it. I know if Emeka and X and all those other guys, or Julian and Jackson were back, they would do the same. So.
CJ, you mentioned Jackson being out, Julian's out. How big is this just for the depth of receiver to see guys like Mecca and Marvin and Xavier stepping up to the names?
Right, I definitely think it shows everybody, even including ourselves, the depth that we do have once those guys do come back. Thank God, I mean, it's not crazy injuries, and they'll be back in either next week or the week after that. So it's amazing just to see the young guys step up even more, like JB, some of these young guys like Keon, and even during practice, they come with us instead of going to scouts and give us a good look. So definitely just got to keep building on that, and just once Julian and Jackson come back, welcome them in and just get more chemistry with them as well.
CJ, are Trey and Mayan better backs than they were a year ago? I think both have improved. What do you think?
I think as a whole, our run game is very more clean. It's a lot of runs that we like to do. They're more schemed up, so we're really working to people, a lot more conversation, and then of course it starts up front, which I think our O-line did a great job today. So, and then Mayan and Trey have been great since they stepped on campus, so I don't think they're doing anything new. It's just as a whole, we're working better together, getting communication down. Me helping with setting IDs in some instances and flipping the plays and checking it. So I think that's what we're doing well.
And the line's moving, people.
Correct.
CJ, especially the pass to Marvin down the left side to the corner, goal line, sideline. You put that on the line.
I think it's a lot. I know I can give my best effort with 20 or whatever that looks like.
Shoot, I can handle whatever comes to me, but I'm glad I got other running backs who can make plays also. I mean, it takes that load off of me.
Do you like the balance that you guys have struck these first 2 games with you and Mayan?
Yeah, I love the balance. I trust Coach Alfred and what he's doing, and I love it. I love it.
I think you got to be a complete receiver. Can't just be a deep threat. Got to be able to work the short routes, intermediates as well. Had to detect the dig was an intermediate route, so got to be able to work at all 3 levels.
Marvin, you scored in different ways. You mentioned the dig. You had the diving catch in the corner of the end zone. Just how much work do you put on being that complete receiver for receiver?
Definitely a lot. I know I need to get my guard catch up a little bit, so I got to work on that. But yeah, short routes, intermediate, deep routes, you got me to do all 3 for sure.
What were you thinking when CJ threw that ball to the corner in the end zone?
Which one?
The diving one you had, like right at the edge of the goal line.
The third touchdown. Just make a play. Coach Hart, he tells me to go up and get the ball a lot, use my size, so that's what I try to do. Just go up and make a play.
Too many touchdowns today to remember them all?
I just had to figure out what play we were talking about.
No, I get it. Just with covering over with JSN, you may have been asked this earlier, but, what does it mean to you just to have such a breakout performance and, knowing he's on the sideline, wanting to be back in there in your position?
Yeah, I know. Jackson's a big part of the team for sure. We miss him, obviously. But, we got next guy up mentality, so everybody's going to step up. Xavier Johnson's doing a great job stepping up. Jaden Ballard, too. So everybody's just trying to step up and feel the way.
Marvin, you mentioned earlier a couple minutes ago that most important practice is game repetition, and even though you didn't, your first start was in the Rose Bowl, you did play in every single game last season. So I just wanted to ask, what did you learn throughout the course of last season that's helped you with this extremely hot start this season?
I learned a lot from Garrett and Chris, honestly. Just watching them last year, how to prepare. Like I said, you can't replicate game reps, so the more you get, the better you'll be. So this is my 3rd start, so I'm still trying to learn, get better each week.
And what is it that you're trying to improve upon the most? Because Ryan Day called you already believer.
Everything. Catching, yards after catch, my route running. Obviously, I think I'm a pretty good route runner, but that too. So just trying to be a complete receiver.
CJ almost customized every throw now for each guy.
That guy he can put it wherever he wants it to. So, he's a great player. So.
Did you expect that ball to be so well thrown on that 3rd touchdown? I mean, that is it's like he handed the ball to you.
Yeah, we just kind of talked about it throughout the week. Maybe missed on one last week. It was pretty much the exact same play.
That one against Notre Dame, right? And
kind of do it like back shoulder a little bit, so we got it fixed. Yeah, that's just how it is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
You're the star this week. I mean, when all these guys are healthy, I mean, you already had your coming out party, but for each guy to be that dangerous, how difficult will that be for the opposition?
I don't really know how difficult it's going to be for them. We're just going to try to do our part. Like I said, anybody can have a breakout game. We have as many weapons as we have on the offensive side. Even running the ball, Trey and Mayan definitely took the ball the whole game if we need to. So we can win many different ways.
Trey and Mayan look even more dangerous now. Looks like Mayan runs harder. Trey runs with more wiggle.
I've never seen
combination of backs that they have. They run hard, man. I don't think one person's not bringing them down. So I need to get like them for sure after I catch the ball. I got to work on it.
More yards after catch.
Yeah, exactly. I got to get like them. Let's talk to them.
Marvin, maybe you were asked this, and if you were, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Did you know that today was only the second time in school history that one receiver has caught
We're
at least 3
head over to Trevion Henderson there.
Right now, I'm just trying to. I'm trusting the coaches, and I trust in what they're doing. So.
Did how last season played out let you have that trust? Where it's like they eased you into it, and the Penn State game came, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
carries.
I mean, last year it showed how much the coaches trusted me. So yeah.
Having someone like Harris Johnson Jr. as a tackle, someone that's one of the best tackles in the country, what does it just mean to you for your confidence, your running ability, knowing that he's going to be up there leading the block for you?
Shoot, Paris is a dog, man. Paris, my whole line is dogs, man. Full of dogs. So whoever I'm running behind, man, I got confidence, trust that they gonna do what they need to do.
The run, I'm sorry if you've already been asked about it, but the run you broke, the 40-yarder you had earlier in the game, how did it feel to break off a run like that?
Shoot, it felt great. I know I had one of those last week. This week, it felt good again. Good again. Yeah.
It seemed like you had a pretty wide open hole on that play. Kind of take me through what you saw.
Shoot, I just saw the outside, hit the outside, and then the receivers, they were blocking very well on the perimeter. And then, number 8 started running in front of me. So, yeah.
The 8-yarder looked like you made 3 cuts right there. Like you added wiggle to your game. You must be a hell of a dancer.
Yeah. I mean, I've been had that wiggle. I mean, yeah.
That's nothing new.
Nah, nothing new.
Their performance the last couple of weeks, does it feel like the backs are more that coach is going to be 50-50 with the balance, run pass?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, my trust Coach Alfred and what he's doing. And me and Maya, I mean, we celebrate each other's wins, and we proud to see each other eat.
So a bit of a different question.
All right, we're going to head over to Steel Chambers right now.
I don't know. I'm gonna go. I'll probably go get some wings with my dad. Probably play with a dog or two. Watch our buddy Bryson over at USC. So get some wings, play with dogs, and watch the ball. That's really our night.
Yeah, it's a hell of a. There's nothing more. Maybe middle of the line or something.
Still, you've faced kind of different. It's kind of a different offense the first 2 weeks. Do you prefer the Notre Dame kind of more physical offense? Do you prefer facing an offense like this? Which one do you like, and which one do you think you maybe fits your game better?
I don't know. I'm not really sure on that one.
How do you think you guys played today? Was it, were you happy with how? No touchdowns, which is obviously a positive. Were you happy with how you played on the defense on the whole? Was it? Did you feel like you played? Brian Day talks about competitive stamina and taking every game the same and taking every game seriously. Did you guys feel like you lived up to that standard today?
I feel like we did a pretty good job. There were still some things that we need to clean up, but overall, I think we did a decently good job.
2 games in, you and Tommy have both gotten some free runs at the quarterback through A-gap blitzes. What about the scheme, or is it the D-line? What's opening those plays up for you?
I think it's the D-line. I think just the offensive line, running backs, whoever's blocking, just having to put all their attention on those front 4, and then us just being able to just fit whatever we need to fit. I think that's really nice for us.
Are you surprised to break through the line free running like that on a play like that, or
I was no, because the back went out to one of us going to be free, so we weren't that surprised with that.
Still, did Mike Hall deliver on a next week, do it again kind of performance today based on what he did last week? I mean, it's several key plays today. He made a play. And what does that do for you guys? Go ahead.
I think he did really good. What we hit on earlier, Mike's he's been showing that all throughout camp. just all throughout the offseason, so we're not that surprised by it.
Yeah.
And you're playing a lot of D linemen. Do you think everybody on that line played today? They say you guys are 12 to 14 deep. What were you looking at?
I'd say I saw probably like 8 or 9 guys out there, maybe. I'm not sure, but everyone that was in there just played their ass off.
Steve, how do you and Cody complement each other as well linebackers, given how you guys are all there?
I think we complement each other really well. Cody's I'm trying not to cuss, jeez. He's really smart. He's a physical guy, just a student of the game, and I think we complement each other really well. No matter who's in, you just feel there's no really change in the defense.
So describe yourself as a goal linebacker then, without cursing, obviously. I mean, if you want to, we won't tell you about it.
I guess like a darker version of like not as crazy as like a Bobby Boucher with like a Tim Riggins type haircut. I don't know, maybe. But there's some plays I didn't play like the It's whatever.
Definitely a water guy.
Well, I love that movie, Waterboy. It's fantastic.
Well, at least you don't talk like Bobby Boucher. Can you give us a little bit?
I mean, I don't think I have a stutter, but I mean, I don't know. I could if I want to. I'm not that bright, but I mean, whatever.
Still, what's it like to come clean? You know.
Let's check out, see who Tom has there.
Number just focused on zeros. Like, how do you feel how you guys are doing in the run game right now?
I feel like we're doing pretty good. Like I said, we get on the film. Yes, there are going to be some rights, there are going to be some wrongs, but as long as we keep that one end goal in mind, where we want to be at the end of this season, I think we're going to keep improving.
Great, Joshua. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys.
What did you do there, the little number 7 in the second half? Because he caused a lot of problems in the first.
We just had to make sure we tie.
Extra meetings, extra everything, just to make sure we knew what we were doing for this point now. And it's a lot when a new guy comes in and changes the whole system. But I think right now we're doing pretty well, and anything could change week to week. But it's right now we have our schemes and we do what we do.
Cody, how would you grade your performance today as a unit, as a defense? I mean, no touchdowns. Did you play with what Brian Day would call competitive stamina? Did you play all the way through? Did you take the game seriously and play good disciplined game?
Yeah, I mean, there's always room to improve there. I mean, I think we played pretty well, but we weren't perfect, and so we want to be perfect at every facet of the game. And next week we're on to the next week and trying to watch the film and get ourselves better. It all starts with us and it ends with us. So we have to be able to play better every game.
Coach, along those lines,
Last question for Cody.
There was a couple times these first games where somebody made kind of an undisciplined mistake and they got pulled out of the game. And just what sort of tone and kind of accountability is that setting right now from this coaching staff?
We want to be really disciplined. We want to be the most disciplined team on the field. And mistakes happen and that stuff happens, but we just want to hammer home that we got to be disciplined and focused throughout the entire game. And we want to be the best defense in the country. So we can't make all those mistakes. And that's the goal. Just trying to get better every week. And from week to week, just be the best team we can.
And 2 games in, do you feel you're playing on a different defense from a year ago? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, what is this feeling like leaving after the first 2 nights?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good feeling to be making TFLs and getting stops, but our mentality is just be some bullets like we always have to be. So just play fast and play aggressive and be smart.
Thanks, man.
All right, thank you, Cody.
Thanks.
All right, you got the full rundown there from Ryan Day and a bunch of players. The idea that they want to be the best defense in the nation, but they need that discipline. It was Teron Vincent at halftime gets flagged for unsportsmanlike, I guess, bumped into an Arkansas State player, and somebody mentioned that maybe he didn't come back into the game. They asked Ryan Day about that. He didn't say anything about Teron. He's never going to throw some of his guys under the bus. But, the discipline has been an issue, and, it continues to be. They'll have something to work on this week for sure when it comes to that.
Well, the reason you want to stay on top of it is you never know when a lack of discipline is going to manifest itself. So every opportunity you have, you need to make sure that you're, like we talked about earlier, setting that expectation, maintaining that expectation so that that lack of discipline does not exhibit itself or display itself or manifest itself at the most inopportune times. Halftime against Arkansas State, we'll put that on the silly side, if you will, to put it nicely. But you don't know when it could be 17-16 against, we got Wisconsin in 2 weeks, where that undisciplined pattern of behavior manifests itself. So you got to correct it when it happens. You can't let it slide if you're going to have these high expectations. Like I'm talking about being the best defense in the country. You just can't let it slide ever.
Well, and you're giving the opponent more opportunities. You're giving them the ball back. It's essentially a turnover, what Taraja Mitchell did on the punt, jumping over, knowing that you can't do that. He's the guy that does, that's his role. He knows the rules of the punt game, and yet he's doing that and costing the team a possession. Like, that's a turnover. When your defense is giving up turnovers like that, yeah, I would expect a much cleaner game against Toledo, because there's going to be so much to work on, and the accountability that Steel Chambers was talking about and others have talked about. We've seen it in action. Saw it with Josh Proctor not playing, then coming back. But yeah, you can't let this stand. I think I asked Ryan Day this week, like with the Josh Proctor thing, were you sending a message? And if you weren't, do you think a message was received? And he's like, well, you'll have to ask the players. But I think they've received the message. You still have to stop it, though. You got to stop doing it.
Well, every opportunity, they are still young adults, still young men. So mistakes are going to happen. But again, it goes back to that expectation. If you're going to set that expectation, you can't let it slide. So when the opportunity presents itself to correct it and make it a teachable moment, you got to take advantage of it, whether it's halftime, Mitchell in the punt game, or missed tackles on the blitz against Notre Dame, busted coverage by Burke. When it happens, you've got to correct it right now and make it a teachable moment for everybody. Because again, you're not thinking. I can't remember who just said it, but with the end game in mind, the end goal in mind, if you got to set these high expectations, have these big dreams, big goals, every rep counts, and you got to correct them when they present themselves.
Yeah, and like I said, there's going to be plenty for them to work on. Kevin and Tom are now working their way back up slowly to the press box. They don't do anything quickly for you guys out there, but once they get up here, we will eventually get to the post-game instant reaction with live stream that we continue to have going on. And then, of course, we've got plenty of questions. If you guys have questions, feel free to throw them into the comment section here. I'm just scrolling through some here, and it's a whole bunch of chatting going on right now about the games going on. I did take a look at the Notre Dame halftime score. It was like 7-6, 7-7. Notre Dame putting up 150 yards of total offense in the first half, which not great considering what Ohio State did to them in terms of, you'd like to see them do have a better showing against the Marshall, wouldn't you?
We are all for the rest of the season. That's a hang your hat win, or we if you're an Ohio State fan, you need it to be. So everyone that's an Ohio State fan needs to be saying "Go Irish" for here and the rest of the season, so that you can hang your hat on that win when it comes time at the end of the year. So we'd like to see them jump all over whoever they're playing for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and actually they're now trailing 9-7 at the half at home to Marshall.
That is not good for business, if you will.
Well, and it could end up being a win that still drops them, and you just. But as long as they continue to win, they will move back up. But yeah, that's one where Buckeye fans have to be Notre Dame fans. I know as much as terrible as that might sound, that's what you got to do. Or you can just have Ohio State go undefeated, and that would be the perfect world for you. But Steel Chambers is always an interesting interview, and when I saw his name pop up in the interview's possibility, I told our producer Shed, let's get to Steele as quickly as we can, because he's usually pretty entertaining. He did, Steele's talking, trying not to cuss as much as he normally does. That was one of the reasons I wanted to get him over there for everybody, so they could have some fun with that. But did mention he's kind of got some water boy in him, and we got to see him dialed in on a blitz today where they went empty, and so I don't think Arkansas State could have called it possibly worse play or alignment or blocking for Steel Chambers on that one. He just blew through there.
When you're playing empty as a defensive guy, you typically have one extreme or the other. You're either going to drop everybody and play max coverage, or you're going to do the other side of the spectrum and blitz everybody and bring the house. And live, it looked like Jim Knowles took the latter and said, we're going to bring everybody. And obviously, Steel Chambers came clean on that stunt. And we look at the field position of that was actually kind of a gutsy call, if you will. That's a big play. That doesn't hit home. That could have been an explosive play for the Arkansas State offense. So it was nice to see that hit home with Chambers come clean. But, they talked about it. When that D line is, and we talked about it earlier, when that defensive line is creating the knockback and getting a push that they're getting, it does just make things so much easier for the linebackers. Typically, we talk about it in run defense where they're clean to run the ball and clean things up. But in the pass game as well, when you really got to account for the front four, it really does make it that much easier for linebackers to run clean in the pass game pressure.
With the linebackers, what has your opinion been of the rotation with Cody Simon and Steele Chambers? Because I think, to me, Cody Simon looks like he's playing pretty well. I didn't expect a rotation because that's not something Jim Knowles likes to do. And so what have you thought about that?
I mentioned it earlier. I like that they're building depth and building quality depth when the opportunity presents itself. Obviously, Cody demonstrated last season he's a dude that can play ball at a high level. So to keep him involved, keep him engaged, because you just don't know, knock on wood, if you will, you just don't know when you're going to need him when it counts the most. So to keep him engaged, keep him there. You can use the old, if you will, the Woody Hayes quote, you need a pair and a spare, and Cody Simon's demonstrated he's the spare. If anything, I'd actually like to see him rotate as well with at the Mike position with Tommy Eichenberg. Get him a series here and there, a game or a series, a half where Tommy's getting a blow, because at some point you'd like to have a guy prepared to jump in there at Mike if you need it as well.
Yeah, and with the Will and the Mike being pretty interchangeable, and Cody Simon also playing the Mike last year, I think he would be able to step into that really well, and it would get him on the field some more, and like you said, give Tommy Eichenberg a bit of a rest. The secondary today, I expected some missed tackles. So when it happens, it's not like you can be like, oh, these guys are terrible, anything like that. Like they're playing really good athletes, and there are more islands out there than there were against Notre Dame, and so you're going to miss some tackles. But I still like the fact that they're right there. Like you don't have a bunch. There's nothing really any busted plays. I think a tight end got behind Ronnie Hickman once today, and the pass was overthrown, but there's always somebody there. I think that's a positive as well. When we've seen in the past 3 years, you can not have a defensive guy in the picture, basically, and there's always somebody like right there with the ball.
Well, that goes back to setting the expectation that you hear him rally to football pursuit. The stuff you go back to Little League, you try and coach up, and Jim Knowles mentioned last week, you'd want to try and limit explosive plays to five or less a game, and you're going to win the ball game. So when you mentioned yourself, when guys are on islands, that's going to happen. So we saw today that they're able to put the guy on the ground even after an explosive pickup and make him snap the ball again. And again, you hold a team to 4 field goals this day and age. I don't care who you are, to hold a team to 4 field goals is a pretty good, pretty strong performance by a defensive unit, especially when Arkansas State was able to get the ball in the red zone. I don't know, half a dozen times or so, to create that knockback and holding the field goals is a testament to the quality of defense they're putting on the field right now.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the Arkansas State stuff. Yeah, 29-yard field goal, 34-yard field goal in the red zone, and the defense really doesn't blink after mistakes. And I think that is something that Zach Harrison said this week, that after that initial play with Lorenzo Styles last week, that would have affected them for an entire game. They would have caved in a little bit after that. And so then I asked him after that, I said, so when you guys do make plays this year, do you look back on it and think, like when you're watching film, like, oh, that would have been a touchdown last year, or that would have been whatever last year? And he said, no, they don't look back on last year, even though he just said they look back on last year. But I think there's plays where, you look as they're happening now and you're like, well, that would have been a touchdown last year. I don't know that I saw any of that today, because I'm now accustomed to this defense. And I think that alone, I think they have an identity now.
Yeah, you hear the players talk about it even. And we're getting to the point now, it's been 30, when the Silver Bullet Storm come around, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And, hear the players even talk about it. It's obviously something that's still in that culture of, we're the Silver Bullets. This is what we're supposed to be. We came here to be. We accepted this scholarship. We are going to be one of the best defenses in the country. And Jim Knowles has obviously laid out, and his staff, this is what it takes to get there. And we talk about pulling players out when they're not meeting those expectations of what a Silver Bullet is supposed to look like. And they're really, so far, it demonstrated they're bought into this is what it takes to play a top shelf defense. and maintain that Silver Bowl legacy that was set all these decades ago now.
Yeah, Arkansas State throws for 223 yards, rushes for 53. James Blackman, starting quarterback, was 20 of 34 for 188 yards. No touchdowns, obviously, kept him out of the end zone. But, not 3.6 yards per play. I think anytime you hold a team to 3.6 yards per play, you're going to do just fine. And even throwing the ball in the air, it's like they didn't have too much success. And when you have no busted plays, no big chunk plays, like what Notre Dame, like 80% of their offense last week came from like three plays last week. At least this week, the Ohio State defense made everything get earned. Like Arkansas State, there were no cheapies, even breaking tackles is doing something. And I don't think the defense didn't give them anything. Arkansas State had to take what they could, and they didn't get much.
And you heard him talk about it during the game. The number 7, whose name escapes me at the moment, he was a pack. What are we, 10, 12, 14, whatever amount of teams they got these days, transfer down guy. So and he played against Ohio State. They mentioned that a few years ago. So this was a top Power 5 dude that was making some plays, and that's going to happen. Other teams got dudes too. Even though we like to put the homer hat on and say, we get the best players ever. Sometimes team's got a dude that's going to make some plays, and you just got to put him on the ground, rally to the ball, put him on the ground, and make him snap it again. And that's what the defense did today.
Yeah, number 7 is Champ Flemings. He is, I believe, their slot receiver. He's the guy. He had 10 catches for 105 yards, 2 carries for 20 yards. He was the guy that I was interested to watch to see how Tanner McAllister did against him. And, he had some plays, but the long play of 58 yards, I guess, in there is the key. But, overall, like if you can hold a team to, looks like they had just one play over 25 yards, that's pretty good. Offensively, as we get ready to jump back to, I think Kevin and Tom are going to be taking over here shortly, and then I will join Tom. Just any overall thoughts, anything stick out to you that we haven't been able to touch on, anything that you wanted to get thrown in there to add in?
I think I'll kind of summarize some of the stuff we saw out there this week about where Ohio State was ranked and say it's week 2 of college football. Ohio State historically is a slow build. Their best seasons have been slow builds. So, yeah, you heard them talk about even the post-game interviews, put it on film, see what they can get better at. So just get a little bit better each week so that you are hitting 5th gear in November and in December, this day and age, the championship games. That's where you want to be peaking. You don't want to be peaking against Arkansas State. You want to have your missed tackles. You don't want to have missed tackles. Let me step back a step. But if you're going to put stuff on film that needs to be correct, you want to do it in week 2 when you're playing against, not to be disrespectful, but playing against Arkansas State. Because you don't want to have that happen the last game of the regular season, because that's when it could be fatal. So fix it now, get it on tape now, get it fixed now, and build as the year goes on. So that'd be my big picture takeaway is, nice win today. You had a big win next week, but there's still a lot of opportunity for improvement, which should get everybody very excited about the potential of this season.
Yeah, Ohio State wins 45-12, and we're talking about, plenty of opportunities for improvement defensively, offensively as well. Offensively, they put up over 538 yards of total offense, 370 passing, 168 rushing. It is interesting to me that they can average 6 or 7 yards a carry. And if you can do that, like back in the day, and I say back in the day, I can go back to 2019 being in the day. If you're averaging 7 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry, you're going to run the ball 45 times and get like 300 yards on the ground.
Well, I go back to, we're in the 20th anniversary. We're nitpicking CJ Stroud's 8 incompletions. Ohio State won a national championship game, and I don't think they had 8 completions in the game. Did Craig Krenzel go 9-30 or something crazy like that? And
MVP.
They won the game. It was the MVP and won the game. Mm-hmm. So, here we are sitting, nitpicking CJ Stroud on his 8 incompletions after he threw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. And he's only going to get better. He's only going to improve.
I think my biggest issue with CJ Stroud is that I had my bold prediction that was that he would complete 82.5% of his passes. He didn't do that. Makes me look bad, and I don't appreciate when he does that. I don't care if he's a college kid,
Understand? Yeah, I think I kind of nailed my I'm 2 for 2 on nailing my pregame predictions. I said last week I didn't think I thought Notre Dame Ohio State was going to be much tighter than everyone thought, and Notre Dame covered the spread and made Ohio State earn it there in the second half. And this week I thought it was going to be, I mentioned earlier, it's kind of the hangover game, and so I think I'm 2 for 2 on predictions. So I might actually retire at this point and go out on top.
No, because we're going to ask you about Toledo. You would think that as a night game, everybody talks about the noon game, as you said, the hangover, the early start. You get that night game, it should be cleaner. People will have plenty of sleep, and the players especially. And I'm expecting a cleaner game in that one. Trevion Henderson, Mayan Williams, the tight ends, got to see quite a bit of Mayan Williams or Mitch Rossi out there, G. Scott out there in 12 personnel. If they have this ability to run the ball, they can run it. They just the lack of plays offensively, the lack of opportunities to really build something is it's just bizarre at times. Like they can't get things going. But then we go back to the start of the show. Well, yeah, that's because they just hit 52 yards to Marvin Harrison.
I hate it when they score touchdowns so fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible, and they do it frequently. I mean, that is what we're sitting here talking about, discussing as in the negative column.
Mm-hmm.
They scored too many too fast. That's terrible.
It's the worst problem to have in football.
It's a very terrible problem when you're scoring too many points too fast that your running backs are only getting 18 carries, being 2 of them. But to put it in the positive column for those running backs, share the load as the year goes on.
Yeah.
Save their bodies so that when it comes to, I'll say it again, when it comes down to November, to have a Henderson that feels fresh, or to have a Williams that's feeling, again, end of the year, no one's 100%, but if you can get those guys still feeling 85% when the year's over, because you're able to save that wear and tear that a feature back typically gets throughout the year, I mean, that's going to could potentially be huge down the stretch for this team.
Well, and now through 2 games, Trevion Henderson has 25 carries and Mayan Williams has 22, I believe.
That used to be a game for a back.
Yeah, exactly.
For 1 game. So they're doing it 2 games. So
mm-hmm.
if they're cutting that workload in half between them, that's going to be huge down the stretch.
And I'd expect them to be similar to this next week. 10 carries for Henderson today, 8 carries for Mayan Williams. And then, one of them may get 20 carries the following week against Wisconsin because they're going to need that. And so they're going to run into that game, if you will, and be as fresh as any pair of running backs in the nation who have played every game. And that's that things are going well in that regard. Like, yeah, sure, you want to see guys hit 100 yards just because, but right now they're going to need to hit a 60-yarder in order to get that because they're just not going to get enough carries right now because there's so much explosion everywhere else as well.
CJ and these wide receivers need to start falling down, I guess, if we want running backs to get more carries. 50-yard touchdown passes and hitting 4 of them.
You need more guys catching and sliding. Just diving catches.
Not enough possession wide receivers on the roster, I guess.
I was going to say, the throws are too accurate, and they're hitting these guys in stride, and they're able to keep running.
And these poor guys are catching them in the end zone.
Well, that's another issue. Yeah, that is
another
issue.
Got to fix that so we can maximize running back carries.
More throws behind the line of scrimmage, I think, is what we're talking about.
Yes.
Let me see if there are any comments through here. I think it's just a whole bunch of chatting. David Greenshield here. I still think Day could do a little better job with run and pass balance. They threw the ball 28 times. They ran the ball 26. CJ Stroud threw it 24. I don't know what through the first 3 quarters they throw more, but also these the RPO stuff, like they consider all of that part of the run game, and however many they call those, it's dependent upon what the defense does, and they'll dictate whether that becomes a run or a throw. I don't know how often like how closely you look at that when you're looking at stuff, but I think it just feels like does CJ throw more in those instances than hand it off, or does it just seem like that because they throw the ball so often?
This day and age, not just Ohio State, but just the way college ball is in general. What's balance? How you can't really define balance anymore when you've got run game has their built-in answer is, hey, if you get this look, even though we've called inside zone, just to pick a generic kind of offensive play, throw it, catch that throw. If you get this, if they come out in this look, instead of checking and flipping, the old school way, flip the run to the other side, the answer now is, hey, catch that throw. So, yeah, even though they call it inside zone, they end up throwing a slant because they got the leverage they liked. So what's balance anymore?
Balance is just scoring, I guess, and balance is being able to do whatever you need to do when it needs to be done.
Win in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so it looks like, oh, look, Tom Orr is there. I think, does that mean that Devin and I can sign off and toss to you now? And then I can run over to where you are, and then we can begin our portion of the show. Is that what I'm getting at, Tom? Is that the if you want to answer, that's a nod. Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and thank Devin for joining me here.
Thank y'all.
In this post game. It was great talking to you. I hope
you as well.
Everybody got their good information in terms of what we saw. And now I will send it off to Tom. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to stick here. Tom's going to handle it, and I'll be seeing you guys here in a minute as well. Thanks.
Hello, welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman. Wait, no, I'm not. Tony will be over in just a minute for Buckeye Weekly Instant Reaction post-game show while he's over here, while he's heading on over here. I'm going to give you some quick thoughts on the game. Ohio State never really in any trouble, never really in question throughout the whole game. But at the same time, it wasn't a thing of beauty. It wasn't a work of art by Ohio State by any means. A lot of penalties. Felt like the defense gave up a few more yards. All right, we good? Yes. Minor technical difficulty. We're all sorted out now. Just kind of a little bit of a sloppy game. It felt like the final score didn't quite match the talent disparity between the two teams. Ohio State was favored by about 45, and they scored 45, but then they gave up 12. Not sure why Butch Jones thought field goals were going to be a thing that you could do today. They were not. When you give up 10.0 yards per play, field goals are probably not going to do it for you. But they kept putting points on the board, just didn't really add up to much. So really a very strange game to me. You kind of got what you expected from Ohio State in the first half, and then you just kind of kept seeing C.J. Stroud. That was a little surprising to me. I think Ross Fulton suggested earlier that it may have just been a function of they didn't get that many plays because they kept scoring very quickly, and so he just didn't get that many snaps. This is 2 games in a row where they just have not had that many snaps. So it was it was a little bit of a weird game. Didn't get to see the younger guys nearly as much as we thought we would. There were some guys who really flashed on defense. Some of the younger guys, we'll talk about that in a minute. But overall, it felt like a comfortable win for Ohio State. And if you're feeling like, oh, that was a little ugly, Ohio State's opponent from last week currently trailing Marshall 9-7. So that's not this is not nearly as ugly as things could be the week after a big showdown where you might run into a little bit of a letdown situation. That no one from Ohio State wanted to say that, but after the week after a primetime top 5 showdown to play Arkansas State in a noon game and not a sold out crowd, you would be excused for being a little let down. Someone who is definitely not a letdown, Marvin Harrison Jr. Holy smokes. We've been telling you about him for a while. You saw him in the Rose Bowl with 3 touchdowns, but you saw him in the Rose Bowl with 3 touchdowns, and then you saw him today with 3 touchdowns. Boy, he is everything that you have heard about Marvin Harrison, he is delivering on. Emeka Egbuka, another big game for him, 9 catches, 90 yards. Last week, 4 catches, 18 yards. Jumping over the shield, the punt shield call on Taraja Mitchell, so had a punt return for a touchdown called back. But, I mean, just a really, really dominating performance by the Ohio State skill talent. I guess Tony's here, so I guess we can start the show. I didn't want to do your bit. You're the one who always starts the show, so Tony, we get to share a microphone. So Tony, go ahead and start the show.
Well, you put me on the spot, Tom. I usually have this.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Moore. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, in the interim between when you signed off at your previous location and walked over here, I thought about just running through the intro and just saying, Tony, and just having the power pause be as long as it took you to get over here. But I didn't know if everyone on the live feed would get that. So
No, that would be too much, too torturous. That would not be cool. But 45-12, Ohio State. I really thought for Butch Jones, those field goals were going to pay. You know what? You keep kicking those, and eventually you will have. You needed 9 more, 12 more to get to where you needed to be. He ran out of time. That's what happened. He ran out of time. Keep kicking those field goals.
To me, are you fansplaining to me that you shouldn't kick field goals?
I'm mansplaining you on kicking.
Yeah. Here's a little rule of thumb. If you're giving up 10.0 yards per during the course of the game, but C.J. Stroud throwing for, the Ohio State offense in the whole, throwing for 13.2 yards per attempt, 19.5 yards per completion, 10.0 yards per play. They rushed for 6.5 yards per carry, which is a very good, solid average. And then they more than doubled it every time they threw the ball. No Jackson Smith-Njigba, no Cam Babb, no Julian Fleming. And it turns out that Ohio State has some quality wide receiver depth.
Yeah, finally got to see who this Marvin Harrison junior kid is. I was talking to Devin about this. Like, you average over 6 yards per carry, but you can't get to 200 yards rushing. And he's like, these receivers just keep scoring touchdowns from all over the place. And you mentioned 19.5 yards per completion. CJ was over 20 yards of completion. Kyle McCord brought that number way down. And, we were wondering, we thought we would see some deep stuff, some deep shots, and we did. And just guys running free and CJ hitting them in stride. And I thought, we talked about in the pregame that you were taking Marvin Harrison. I was taking Emeka Egbuka. I thought he was going to catch Marvin there in the third quarter. He had the long touchdown run. I'm like, he's coming from behind. And then I think Marvin put that way out of reach with the 184 yards total on 7 catches, 9 targets, much better than the whatever 5 of 11 that they were last week, and really tough to get going. But, Emeka, 4 for 118, 80 yards after the catch, pretty good. And did you explain to them that Marvin Harrison's 3 touchdown catches for the second time in his career makes him the second Buckeye to do that behind or with
David Boston?
Joey Galloway, 93 and 94.
Okay.
I wouldn't have gotten that one either.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think of the 1993 and 1994 Ohio State offenses as explosive passing attacks. Yeah, it may surprise you to learn that I have been a lot less plugged in with the Twitter and stats and all that kind of stuff than you probably have. Over the course of the game, the Wi-Fi on the field was not outstanding, not what you're looking for specifically. So, yeah. So it's not been a great day technologically, but that's okay. I think first of all, we saw a lot more CJ Stroud than I expected to see.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was thinking this was going to be maybe a half of CJ Stroud, maybe, a drive in the third quarter, because I figure you want to get Devin Brown, you want to get Kyle McCord plenty of snaps. And I guess it's a function of they just didn't have that many plays, so they wanted to get CJ Stroud more snaps. But you're going to have an opportunity to get CJ Stroud more snaps. Like, there are going to be plenty of games where you're going to be able to get CJ Stroud more snaps. I was a little surprised we saw Kyle. I thought CJ Stroud was going to be out 4 drives earlier than he was. I was not at the Ryan Day press conference. Was he asked about that? Did he discuss that at all?
No, he didn't talk about that. Wasn't asked about that. Just I don't recall. But looking at the second quarter stats here, look at that time of possession: 2 minutes and 50 seconds for Ohio State. CJ Stroud, 3 of 5 passing, 1 touchdown, of course. I think that second quarter really took the wind out of their sails in terms of getting somebody else in there because obviously you're not going to be able to do much with 2 minutes and 50 seconds of possession. And so, you've got to build it into the third quarter. But they were out there until like the 8-minute mark or so of the fourth quarter. And yeah, we were expecting a much it seems dumb to say we were expecting a much better offense, but at 10 yards of play, it's just I think we expected that I don't know, quicker. I think, and you can't really make it any quicker if this is how slowly the game is moving, I guess.
Well, I think more so than the offense, I expected more from the defense. I mean, go back to the pregame show and you'll hear me say, I think the only thing that would really concern me is if the defense can't get off the field. And here's Arkansas State's drives. The field goal drive of 11 plays, 56 yards, a field goal drive of 5 and 50, a field goal drive of 14 plays and 58 yards, a field goal drive of 10 plays and 43 yards. And then the end of the end of the game was 9 plays and 38 yards. I mean, that's a lot of plays, and a 4-minute drive, an almost 7-minute drive, a 4:45 drive. I mean, it felt like Ohio State should have been able to get off the field a little more frequently than they did. It wasn't like they were converting a ton of third downs. They just kind of kept moving the chains. I think they were 5 of 20 or something like that on third downs. But when you look at the first downs in the game, Ohio State, they were within 5, 8, something like that of Ohio State. It was 20 to 15 in terms of first downs, which 20 is not that many, but a lot of those were touchdowns. So there were not a lot of methodical drives for Ohio State just because of how explosive they were. But I mean, is that a concern to you that the defense was not able to get off the field as much as you would maybe expect?
But then you look at third down conversions; they're 5 of 20. Arkansas State was that's a winning number. I think what I expected was for Ohio State to come out and be spread out, and that could create some issues. And not that it exposes anything; it's just tougher to defend that than it is to defend Notre Dame, who is at the half 9-6 down to Marshall. By the way,
9-7.
No, 9-7. Wow.
They got a rouge.
That's impressive. How did that happen? No, yeah, it was 9-7. I'm sorry, you're right. But
field goal and 2 safeties.
We'll get to Iowa in a second, but the Taraji Mitchell thing, getting that personal foul. You're not supposed to leap. That's his position. He knows the rules because if this is your position, you're going to learn the rules about what you can and can't do. So to do that and cost them a possession, that's a turnover. That's essentially a turnover. So they kept the drive going. They had, I don't know how many offsides, 4 or 5 offsides. Some issues there. Penalties, they had 9 for 85, Ohio State. And, we see them routinely over the years, be in that 9 to 11 range where it's those are the bad years where you have a lack of discipline. And I saw somebody mention or heard somebody mention during the post game that maybe Teron Vincent didn't come back in after the halftime personal foul and sportsmanlike conduct penalty. And that goes back to the accountability that these coaches have, which seems to be higher than it has been in the past. I still think that is tied to depth. To go back to Jim Tressel's dad's old rule that the level of penalty is what
the severity of the punishment is directly in proportion to the quality of the backup. That is the old Lee Tressel maxim. That's probably true a little bit of the conservatism around the health situations is probably also directly in proportion to the quality of the backup because, boy, they've been real cautious with the wide receivers, haven't they? Boy. And then, Luke Whippler was out there playing the whole game today. He was someone else who we were kind of keeping an eye on, and I assumed Luke Whippler was not going to play, and then Luke Whippler played. So, but yeah, the wide receivers definitely stepped up. The defense, it did feel like that was maybe just a little bit of a focus issue, a discipline issue, however you want to frame it. You can talk about competitive stamina, and you have to take everyone equally seriously. I got to tell you, how many football coaches have you talked to over the years that have said some variation of you can only get up for really up for 2 or 3 games a year? 20 years ago, I worked up in Detroit, and Bo Schembechler taped a Friday show, the Big Ten ticket show, every Friday morning in the station. So I would always get to go over and shoot the breeze with Bo Schembechler for 10, 15 minutes. And I remember talking to him about about that. And, Ohio State, I think I had just come back up from, it might have been like the San Diego State game in 2003, where they had played Washington in a big primetime opener. It was very similar to this one. The big primetime opener against Washington. They win, national TV, cover of Sports Illustrated, all that kind of stuff. And then the next week they're playing San Diego State, and this was a bad San Diego State team, and Ohio State won 16-13, and I think Will Allen had a 100-yard interception return, and it was like they beat this bad San Diego State team 16-13 and were like fortunate to win the game, and they were probably like a 4-touchdown favorite. And I was, talking to him about how they look like garbage, and he said, it was exactly that. It's almost impossible to be up for more than a couple games a season. I mean, really, really, really like fire breathing up. And it's very difficult to be up back-to-back weeks. And they were up last week. No question they were up last week. A game like this, I mean, you can happy talk how good Arkansas State is all you want. They know what 44.5-point favorites means. So, yeah, I mean, it was just a little bit loose, but it was also never really in danger at any point either.
Yeah, and the fact that Ryan Day had to talk so much about competitive stamina this week tells you that they know this is a letdown type of game, going from a night game against Notre Dame to a noon kickoff against Arkansas State, the first game where everybody's like, we can breathe, we can relax. There's no danger here. We can just have a good time. Let's go have a picnic. And I mean, you can do that, but then you have ugly wins. An ugly win being, 45-12, where the defense doesn't allow the offense to get into the end zone. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they bounce back next week when you have a night game, but it's Toledo. So, you can't give me the noon, it's just a lazy Saturday thing. However, then you can give me just sitting around all day, it's hard to stay focused. And, these night games, they just take a long time. And by the time you get there, it's, your day is shot. The discipline is an issue. What I was saying earlier with Devin is, though, there's some missed tackles, sure, but there's always somebody around the ball. And that's a change from the last couple of years where there didn't always happen to be somebody there. And that's when things are perfectly blocked and, things are a play where is executed just as the offense designed it. And instead of going 40, it might go 8 or 12. And if you miss a tackle, instead of going 85, you might go 22 instead. It's very different.
Yeah, it was very much, you saw that where it was just, you'd miss a tackle, and last year it would turn 4 yards into 40, and this year it turns 4 yards into 8 yards. And, that's not great. And I'm sure there will be, I would be surprised if a number of starters on defense graded out as champions this week. I think that'll probably not be the case. But
Denzel
Burke did not have himself a good game. That was just, and I don't know that that's a concern. I think it's just, he just didn't have a good. Is it a concern? You're making a face.
I think this is chalked up to. I had somebody DMing me another NFL scout saying this is not a surprise given the early start and cornerbacks being what they are in terms of sometimes they can get bored or just they need they feed off of energy. I don't know what all of the different reasons that make cornerbacks different than everybody else. But
this all sounds very scientific.
Yes, I think it does. It's football science. But, these noon games, it's not a surprise if guys aren't outstanding. I still think you shouldn't be getting beaten as many times as you are. And he needs to. I wonder, you're not supposed to have a memory or you're supposed to forget your last play. I wonder how much last week has been seeping into this week, and okay, that's cool.
The pictures are uploaded into the system.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Tom, your pictures.
Kevin is not that good at charades, is my takeaway there.
16 words rhymes with.
Pictures are in.
No, but,
okay, movie.
And I don't want to harp on Denzel because obviously he's a tremendous player, but I'm sure he's not going to be happy with this one, and he didn't seem happy with last week. So I wonder how this fuels him throughout the season.
Well, he's got natural ability, and sometimes you can have. He caught people maybe a little bit by surprise last year, and now people know, and now there's film out there, and the film can be, wow, this guy is good, but the film can also be, hey, he's vulnerable in this spot or this spot, and people can take advantage of it.
Conversely, I'll interrupt you. I thought Cameron Brown was really, really good. Had the one missed tackle, but other than that, I thought he was fantastic. He was hitting. He was right there. I thought it was a solid day from him.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of J.K. Johnson this week. A lot of J.K. Johnson because Jordan Hancock was out. He was out with an injury. So J.K. Johnson was the third corner, and he was playing early and often. And he played, he gave up some passes, but I would say he played, pretty well, reasonably well.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the accountability because I think they yanked Denzel Burke at that point because, they had him in there pretty early. And then they were comfortable enough to rotate him with Cam Brown. And then it was J.K. Johnson and Denzel Burke playing together. So I think that's a positive to see him out there, and not just as a reactionary thing like Burke needs some time to sit, like let Denzel sit. And it wasn't just that. It was also like, okay, let's get J.K. Johnson out there with Denzel now and see how things go. So, yeah, good to see that with Jordan Hancock out. You can't just have these two cornerbacks. It can't just be Denzel and Cameron. You need more, and so they worked towards that this week, and they got some depth played.
And they got a lot of depth played at safety as well. You saw Josh Proctor, I think, started the game.
He did.
And that was kind of a little bit of a question because he played gave up a big play in the first play last week, played only 5 snaps, and then played a ton today. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the final snap count was for him. But
he played more than Ransom, I think. And it seemed to be a while before Lathan Ransom even got out there. So this is another instance of the accountability. But then also, like, that was just one game. Forget about it. We still need you. And all week, Ryan Day, Perry Eliano, Jim Knowles, like, yeah, we still need him. Like, we still need Josh Proctor. He's going to play. Ryan Day said he thought that Lathan Ransom would start this week on Thursday. But it's interesting that they went back to him. It was kind of just a show of support and a show of trust.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any concern that he's not can't play at the level that he was. You come out of fall camp as the starter.
Yep.
You expect to at least be in that rotation moving forward, and it sounds like very much like he is going to be in that role.
Yeah, I thought he played well also, and I'm just looking, Lathan Ransom still finished with more tackles, 4 tackles to 3 for Josh Proctor. There was one instance where there was like a tackle in the open field, and I couldn't see who it was, but I'm like, that has to be Lathan Ransom because of how sound the tackle was, and it was. But I thought Josh Proctor played well, and he had some big hits as well, and he looks comfortable, and I think as long as that is, he's comfortable on that switch with the corner blitz. He just, missed the tackle in that first game and showed to be, a calmer but still quite fast and quite emphatic when he hits you.
Talked after the game to Steele Chambers and Cody Simon. We'll talk about the defensive line in a minute. The defensive line was really good again. We'll see what the situation is with Mike Hall. I don't know if there was an update on him after the game.
Ryan Day said it doesn't look like anything serious. They're no concern about it being a long-term thing.
Okay. Yeah, it looked. I have a picture that looks like he maybe got a knee in the helmet, so maybe he just got whacked in the head and just needed a minute. He was very good again. 3 tackles for loss, a sack, just ho hum, another Mike Hall game. And he had a sack on 4th down where he just busted in and. He almost missed James Blackman, went almost past him and just kind of grabbed him and ragdolled him down. But
it's like, get back here, that sort of thing. It's another impressive day by a guy who he lived up to what Ryan Day wanted this week. Said, do it. Okay, you did it against Notre Dame. Now do it against Arkansas State. And Mike Hall's like, okay.
Done. I want to get back to the defensive line in a minute, but first the linebackers. That defensive line is freeing those linebackers up. And Steele Chambers talked about the fact that they're just coming clean. There was one on the 3rd down in the north end of the stadium, the closed end of the stadium, left side of your TV screen, where it was a 3rd down, and Steele Chambers got in there so fast. I was kind of getting the camera focused on the quarterback after the snap, and normally I'll have a picture or two before the guy gets there. It's like Steele Chambers is already impacting him as I get my first picture off. It was one of the fastest. James Blackman had about 0.2 of a second in the pocket before Steele Chambers got there.
Yeah, it was a bad move by Arkansas State to empty the backfield because there's nobody there to pick up that blitz, and I'm sure Steele Chambers, as soon as he sees there's nobody back there, they didn't touch him. And even in past years, you've seen some guys get in untouched, but then a quarterback just sidestep them and they keep going. This, I mean, there was nowhere for Blackman to go. It's another sure tackle by the linebackers. And I really, I said this to Devin. I'm kind of surprised at the rotation with Steele and Cody, but it's going well. And Cody Simon continues to play well. And Devin even said, he wouldn't mind seeing Cody get some time at middle linebacker to give Tommy Eichenberg a break. But I think the linebackers are doing really well. Like you said, they are so clean. The defensive line is clogging up everything, and they're just picking guys off. It's really the whole shooting fish in a barrel type thing. They shouldn't be missing tackles because there's nobody around them to make things difficult. It's as soon as somebody gets to the line of scrimmage or past it, there's a linebacker there, and it's interesting. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, this is a safety-driven defense. How many times have we heard that?
Yep.
But on the stat sheet, it is a linebacker-driven defense. There are four guys on the stat sheet with 5 tackles or more: Steele Chambers, Cody Simon, Cam Brown, and Tommy Eichenberg. And that is the defensive line has been very effective. But you got to go down. The first defensive lineman, the only defensive line with more than 3 tackles is Caden Curry. Now, oh boy. Hey, remember at pregame when we said that we were looking forward to seeing Caden Curry?
Yeah.
Hey, we saw Caden Curry. As soon as he was out there, I was like, oh, I'll get a picture of him, coming off the edge. Like, because you never know. You never know if you're going to get an action shot. It's like, well, I'll get one just so we have kind of like a staged photo for the site, just in case we write about Caden Curry at some point. And then it was just like, the next 4 plays are all Caden Curry just wrecking someone's life.
It was, and I swear, every time you watch that guy play, the first time I saw him in high school, he was just blowing everybody up, and enrolls early here and is impressive from the outset. He has made as many plays in his career as some of the other defensive ends at Ohio State, and it took him 2 games to do so. So I think there's some guys, some seniors that might want to just step it up a little bit, because how long do you let him just not be part of the rotation? Now, again, fourth quarter, he's doing this, and that's great, but he still finished with 4 tackles. He's just an active guy, and he gets into the backfield, as you saw, and at some point, it's like, well, let's see what he can do against a better team, because I think those were all still starters in there for Arkansas State at that point. I know they put the backup quarterback in there eventually, but Larry Johnson wants to put his young guys in positions to succeed. I'm starting to think maybe Caden Curry can handle more.
Week 1, you saw the defensive ends with the most snaps were JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. And then Zach Harrison was kind of right around Jack Sawyer. And then Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Tyler Friday were kind of way back down that line. You wonder, is Caden Curry now going to maybe start taking some of those snaps away too? It feels like the older guys have kind of gotten passed by some of the second-year guys. Yeah. You wonder, is Caden Curry going to start climbing that ladder as well? Because, I know it was late. I know it was the fourth quarter. I know the game was already over, and who knows what how hard are the Arkansas State guys going? How was that all the ones? I couldn't tell you the Arkansas State depth chart that well to know, but boy, it is when you get on the field and you make plays. Coaches generally want to see you on the field more.
Yeah, and he's maybe you don't bump him up just yet because you've seen how guys can transfer mid-season if they don't like the way the depth chart is looking. But also, you still want to keep your vets engaged, obviously, and they've put in a lot of time and effort. But if next week in the fourth quarter Caden Curry has 2 sacks, then do you put him in there against Wisconsin? Maybe Wisconsin is a bridge too far at this point, but maybe it's not. And you got to let the young guys eat. We saw JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer do that a little bit last year. Maybe it wouldn't be surprised if Caden Curry is brought along like Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer didn't play all that much, and it wasn't until games were over. And then you let him build. And if he can do something, and to be frank, Tom, when you look at the defensive end's pass rush, there wasn't. They didn't really do much. But as Devin Radcliffe said in the pre-post game, right now they're just being very basic. And so, and I was taking notes and jotting that down, where it's kind of the same thing over and over again. It's trying to take the outside, and JT Tuimoloau had some power rushes. They're not really able to get the wide speed thing going yet. But obviously, I don't think anybody's too concerned when you've got those two. And even Zach Harrison was good against the run. we can talk about that run defense once again, but like 52 yards or so rushing on 30 some attempts, and 53 on 34 attempts, 1.6 yards per carry. Like that's going to get the job done.
Yeah, it was a very, they only had 2 sacks, and you look at that, and you're like, oh boy, was the defense not good? And it's like, well, but then they had 12 tackles for loss, so I was just totaling up. I think I hit my bold prediction on. I think I said eight guys.
I think you said 10.
No, I don't think I think I said 8, and there were 9. So
I'm hoping you said 10.
yeah, I don't think I did. But yeah, 8. We'll see. Yeah, 9 guys get on the stat sheet with tackles for loss, which again goes right back to what you were talking about earlier with gang tackling. There's one guy there making plays. Sometimes there's 2 guys there making plays. Sometimes there's 4 guys there making plays.
Tyleik Williams credited with 1.5. I think he had 3 to tell you that there was somebody else there with him. Like there was one where he gets into the backfield and goes down to a knee and then gets back up and tackles the guy for a loss. So I thought it was good for him to get in there and just, be heard from again and not to go 2 games without being heard from, being some forgotten man, while the guy that you came in with is blowing up and leaving everybody behind. So I thought it was good just for his morale, or at least my morale when thinking about his morale, that he was able to make some plays out there.
Yeah, and I mean there were guys making plays out there all over the place, which it's so weird to have. It feels like we're having a very bipolar conversation about this defense, where it's like, man, they were making plays all over the field. Boy, they played really sloppy and didn't get off the field enough. And there were the plays that extended drives, and there were just so many offsides penalties, which is just like that's just focus. That's just that is not that is not. Oh, the crowd was so loud. It was not. That was just
over 100,000 in the stadium today, Tom.
100,067. Look at my air quotes. That was Michigan crowd counting right there to get it over 100,000, I think. But it was it was a nice crowd. It was not not last week's crowd, which nor would you expect it to be. But it was. I mean, it was a. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm around Ohio State football right now. We should probably talk. We're talking all about how Ohio State sort of played down, played a little sloppy. Boy, you look at everything else that's going on in college football today, and it's like, yeah, I mean, Ohio State didn't look fantastic, but Notre Dame is just now taking the lead in the 4th quarter over Marshall, 15-12. Clemson was up a whopping 21-9 on Furman just before halftime, scored a touchdown right at halftime to take the 28-9 lead into the half. Texas A&M at home against App State. Texas A&M is tied 7-7 with 2 minutes left in the first half.
I think I took the over.
Wisconsin is tied with Washington State with less than a minute to go in the first half. Georgia is up 20-0 on Samford with 7 minutes left to go in the second. Alabama barely escapes Texas. It just there was a lot of teams that were that are kind of highly ranked teams that did not play the way you probably would have expected them to, which is in a way what you should expect from college football teams.
Exactly. And, the Alabama is trailing 13-10. Texas kicks a field goal, and I turned to Kevin like, so this means Texas is definitely losing 17-16. And is that what it finished? Was it like 19-6?
20-19.
20-19 after they traded some more field goals. So, again, that's another thing where are you going to beat Alabama with field goals? Are you going to beat Ohio State with field goals? Probably not. And I'm sure Sark is happy. Like, would he have been happier with like a 17-point loss? I think you would. Like, yeah, we didn't get blown out. Now you're like, but you could have won this one. Like, this is a bad loss. This is a tough loss, not a bad loss. It's a good loss. This is a much tougher loss than losing by like 17 and keeping it close.
Well, they were up in the final minute. I think Alabama kicked the winning field goal with 10 seconds left or something like that. So, yeah, that is a tough way to lose. And I saw Quinn Ewers went down, and so I assume that was
a bad one. He got trampled or just pounded into the ground, planted into the ground onto his I think left shoulder. It didn't look good.
Yeah, that's so
he looked good. He was like 9 for 12 for 134 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the conversation around that game, and is that framed as, boy, I've got questions about Alabama, or is that framed around, woo, Texas back? I mean, I have a feeling I know what the conversation around that's going to be, but
can it be both?
No, probably not. Based on history, no, I don't think it probably can. We have a new segment we wanted to do today, the shot of the game. I'm down on the field. I'm actually working during the game. Not sure if you knew that. Down on the field shooting photos. So we are going to try and do a new segment. Just share one or two of them that you guys might enjoy. Which one are we starting with?
It is Trevion hitting the hole.
Okay, Trevion Henderson hitting the hole. That would be one of the touchdowns he scored in the north end zone. I think that was the first touchdown he scored in the first half of the game. I mean, he had the second touchdown of the game, making it 14-3 in the first half, I believe, in the towards the end of the first quarter. He had himself a day. I mean, he has, we talked last week about sort of thunder and lightning, the dynamic between he and Mayan Williams. 10 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns for Trevion Henderson, including a 41-yard touchdown in the second half. Mayan Williams, 8 carries, 46 yards, 5.8. And, that 5.8, that's the worst number anyone's put up. Any of the Ohio State running backs have put up this year. And 5.8 that's a really respectable number. So a little bit of Dallin Hayden later. One touch, one catch, or one rush for Emeka Egbuka on kind of like a little end around thing. And, he was very effective as well. Do we have another one, or were you just doing the one?
Yeah, just the next one in the cycle of Trevion, jumping over the goal line.
Oh, okay. Yes, Trevion hopping over the goal line. Yes, he was. He does a little hop every time he crosses the goal line if he's not going to get
to touch the goal line.
Yeah, it's like jumping over the foul line in baseball. Yeah.
No, I thought that first touchdown run was between the tackles, between the guards, frankly, and it was untouched. He was just like dodging guys. The whole can't touch him in the phone booth. That's kind of what that was. It was a good looking run.
Yeah, and the offensive line was pretty good again today. I think Stroud got sacked once, maybe, and there were just consistently lanes for the guys to run through, 6.5 yards per carry, and it was not skewed by a ton of huge runs. They were just very consistently able to get 4, 5, 6 yards a carry. It felt like pretty consistently, which. This is a team you should be able to do that against, and they could. And frankly, I think my only complaint about the running game was that they didn't have another 67 yards or so to get to 237. Second week in a row that I've thought, I think they're going to run this out. They're going to run the game out. I'm going to hit my bold prediction of number of rushing and passing yards, and once again they fall a little short on the rushing side.
And like I was telling Devin, it wasn't that long ago. If you're averaging 6.5 yards a carry, you're going to rush for 260 yards because you're just going to carry the ball that much. And now it's like, if I would have told you Ohio State was going to average 6.5 yards per carry, you probably would have felt pretty decent about that. But there just weren't enough plays. 26 rushes, 28 passes, 54 plays on offense total.
I think we got a super chat.
Jordan Kapler, curious as to how you guys have viewed a win like this as a student, and how has your perception of the team changed since being quote-unquote professional?
What I liked as a student was the big plays. And, I got to watch some big play offenses in, 94-ish, but 95 and 96 and 98, and then, 99 and then 2003 and then 2004 when I finally left. No, that's a joke, Tom. But no, I always liked the big plays, and I got to see that. So a game like this, we would go back, honestly, and watch it on the VCR and break it down and then go out for the night. But this is fine. I mean, I wouldn't think this is a bad thing. I would see back then we had the silver bullet defense, and I think you still saw that today. And so I wouldn't have this wouldn't have been anything to be upset about. But also standards, I don't know if we should say standards are so much higher or people are so much more spoiled, because we were coming out of the 90s. Mm-hmm. So this would have been, this is fine. This is totally acceptable.
Yeah, back in my day, going to the Rose Bowl was considered a good season. Now it's a miserable failure of a season. Yeah, I mean, you go back to the 1996 season, Ohio State loses to Michigan, goes to the Rose Bowl, and wins, and it's this incredible, almost national championship season. And the difference between that and last year was they lost to Oregon at the beginning of the year. They still lose to Michigan in a game where they're favored. And that knocks them out of the national championship race, that knocks them out of the Big Ten championship race, and they go to the Rose Bowl and they win. And another, I mean, 2 of the all-time classic Rose Bowls. And now everyone looks at that and goes, meh, 2 losses. No Rose Bowl. No one cares about the Rose Bowl anymore, Grandpa. And I mean, I think that is a back then, early Jim Tressel era. This is a little after I was a student, but early Jim Tressel era, I remember talking to people the golden age of Ohio State football, and we're living through it. And now you look back at some of those Jim Tressel seasons, and it's like, oh, 2 losses. Whoa, this is awful. I mean, Jim Tressel, if Jim Tressel, walked out of a time machine today and took over for Ryan Day and had some of his early Jim Tressel seasons, does Jim Tressel make it to his 5th season? Does he get fired after 2004? Because I feel like he might. I mean, because you had a 2002 season, and then you had 2003, and you lost to Michigan, and you didn't win the Big Ten, and then 2004, that you beat Michigan, but I mean, you might get fired mid-season in 2004 after the Iowa 33-7 game.
I think because of the situation with the quarterbacks in 2004, he would have gotten some leeway. However, if they lose to Michigan, now you're like, I still think it would have been too soon. It would still be too soon, if in fact. But the expectations have gotten higher and higher because the results have gotten better and better, and so this is what Ryan Day wanted. So he can leave at any time if he doesn't like it, but it's just been interesting to see what now constitutes as a letdown, and even a performance like C.J. Stroud today, 16 of 24, 351 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and you're like, yeah, he missed some passes, he missed some. It's like missing passes, missing completions has been around forever, and it used to be customary. It used to be something you saw all the time. The scoreboard right now is showing the 2011, 2012 spring game for Ohio State, and Braxton Miller as a quarterback. I promise you, if he completed 60% of his passes in a game, people were thrilled. He won a game where he completed 1 pass in a game. It's just a different world entirely now, and they're Ohio State now victims of their own success, I think, in terms of expectations from people.
Yeah, the expectations have definitely raised quite a bit. Where you look at a game like this, and I mean, they didn't cover, so okay, great, who cares?
That line was too much anyway. Even though I picked a 52-point win.
You know what? I was feeling pretty good about picking 56-10, and it was, they score one more touchdown and it's 52-12, and it's like, okay, it was kind of. I don't feel like
you can see it.
Yeah, and it feels almost like if you don't have the one, the stupid penalty on the punt, or you don't have one of those drive extending penalties, you get an extra drive or 2, and then you're probably getting more. You put up 1 more touchdown, 2 more touchdowns. Boy, I mean, can we talk a minute about Emeka Egbuka? Sorry, almost said it wrong. Emeka Egbuka. We've been kind of thinking, boy, he's gonna break one at some point on the kick return. He's gotten a chance on the punt return. He broke one. It didn't count, but man, he is just so explosive with the ball in his hand.
Yeah, I kind of am happy for Taraji Mitchell in that there was a block in the back on that penalty as well. So he wasn't the one that cost Emeka that touchdown. But yeah, it's just you can kind of see that one developing, and no matter wherever he gets the ball, you're like, oh, this could be it. And we had the end of the jet sweep in there. He had some other catches, but it's just he's a guy to me that you can't get the ball to enough. Not that he's a Curtis Samuel or anything like that where you're going to run in between the tackles, but I think he should be doing that fly sweep once a game at least. And they blocked that one pretty well, and he got a nice gain out of it. But yeah, I was a little bit upset that Chip Trainum back there on kickoff returns did not actually get to return any, because I was racking my brain on the last Ohio State linebacker to return a kick, and I don't know if there are any in modern day football, but yeah, Emeka is fun to watch, and it was good to see him. He's averaging over 100 yards receiving a game now. It's 208 yards in 2 games, and got to get in the end zone again. And I like the little wrinkle of him at punt return. I understand taking him off of kick return. It's too much, and I don't think that's going to be the last time he busts one as a punt returner.
No, I don't think so. And you wonder, has he
earned the trust of the coaching staff enough on those punt returns now to, it feels like an awful lot of those punts are hitting the ground. And, the first one, and then there was one that I think bounced into the end zone that was, okay. But there've been a few of those that you really wonder deep down if the coaching staff would like those caught, or if it's like, don't risk it, don't try and Willie Mays it if it's over your head.
Well, and that was one of the reasons the Urban staff really liked Jalen Marshall, because he would never let anything bounce. But in that aggression, you kind of bounced some. I think more than them having trust in Emeka right now, Emeka needs trust. The coaches need to build trust, because they've been putting him in positions like I blame them for last week, and who knows whether to blame them for this week on some of these ones that are bouncing, because it still seems like they're trying to find exactly where he needs to be able to be more effective or be as effective as they need.
Did see Cam Martinez out there returning the last punt of the day. He didn't get one. I think that was the one that went into the end zone. But you saw him. He played well on defense as well. I think there were a couple of number changes. He has not been in number 13 all year, has he?
Yes.
Oh, has he?
No, was he in 10 for a while?
I think he was in 10.
Yeah,
I think he was in 10. And then I looked at number 1 out on the field on defense at some point today, and I'm like, this is so unprofessional. How do I not? This is embarrassing. How do I not know who's wearing number 1 this year? And I pull up a roster, and they don't have number 1 on the roster. It's Court Williams who just changed his number from 2 to 1 at some point, apparently after they printed the rosters for this game.
Well, because last week with Emeka being the punt returner, and that's part of Court Williams' role as well on that team. So every time there was a punt, Court Williams would have to change his jersey from 2 to 98. So I think they got tired of that and got annoyed with that. And so the Court, our equipment guys have said today you are number 1, and so today you are number 1. But it's kind of rare in this day and age to not have a number 1 offensively or defensively. You almost wonder, is that something that is being held back? Like nobody has earned it, but maybe nobody wants it. That's the blood jersey in basketball apparently. Like now it's the punt return jersey for whomever.
Do we have listener questions we should be getting to?
A lot of people are just having fun in there.
No fun.
Ryan Stan says, how many points does Michigan score on Hawaii?
How many points does Michigan score on Hawaii? I'm going to answer that question with a question. How many points does Michigan want to score on Hawaii? Because whatever they want to, they're going to be able to do. Hawaii is going to be like UMass / UConn, like what UMass and UConn have been the last couple of years, maybe New Mexico State. That's Hawaii this year. They are starting from literally square one in terms of rebuilding that program in the wake of Todd Graham's tumultuous departure. So, yeah, that is going to be. I think if they don't get to 63, I think that's just Jim Harbaugh being extremely nice.
Well, and I was thinking 63 as well, because I do expect like 2 defensive touchdowns in this one, and so then you've got 4 or 7 touchdowns for J.J. McCarthy and his offense. Cade McNamara will lead a touchdown drive, but I think I already put the over-under on J.J. McCarthy touchdowns responsible for at 5.5, and I don't think that's a completely ridiculous number, because he's going to rush for 1 or 2. He's going to throw 3, 4, maybe 5. Just again, as you said, it's up to Jim Harbaugh how high scoring they want to be today.
Supersonic, I guess. Day needs to just commit to the running game, not taking advantage of Justin Fry and the concepts he brought. Just an opinion.
So Day needs to take advantage of the running game. It's not really a question, but the thought from the viewer, 26 carries, 28 attempts today. That's pretty balanced, and especially given how effective they were in the air. I mean, we said earlier 19.5 yards per attempt and CJ Stroud per completion, and that was actually better for CJ Stroud. It was 13.2 yards per attempt, which is crazy high. If you're throwing for 13.2 yards per attempt, like you should probably do that. You should probably just keep doing that. The average play from scrimmage was a first down today for Ohio State. The 10.0 yards per play, I think Ryan Day has sort of learned his lesson on that, and I think Ryan Day is going to be running the ball more in spots where it probably matters. I didn't have a huge issue with the run-pass mix today.
Well, and it's probably something the coach himself, Ryan Day, has to fight against. It's counterintuitive. When they are. You want to run the ball. You are successful running the ball. You're averaging nearly 7 yards a carry, except the defense is forcing the pass because they've got an extra guy in the box, or they're not split too deep or whatever, and inviting the run. So it's like, I know we can run it, but the numbers say we should throw it, and it's hard to go against that. And then when you throw the RPO in there, where CJ Stroud is reading either a handoff or throw the ball, like as we say all the time, those are all considered part of the running game. These RPO passes, the quick strikes, and the quick passes outside on the reads, and so that's all part of the running game. So we see 168 yards rushing. They may see 268 yards rushing based on what those RPOs led to.
So we should ask Ryan Day before we score the bold prediction show how many rushing yards he feels they got. Spiritually, Ryan, how many rushing yards did you have?
I saw your eyes light up. I'm like, what did I just say?
Jeremiah Yoder, anyone still worried about the Ohio State defense? They've given up only 1 touchdown in 2 games.
So is anyone still worried about the Ohio State defense? They've only given up 1 touchdown in 2 games. I don't think worried is the right word. I don't think I'm sold that this is the greatest defense in the history of football. I think this is I am sold on the fact that this is a substantially better defense than it was last year. And I'm sold on the fact that this is a defense that is probably good enough, if the offense is what it should be, that the defense is good enough to win the Big Ten, get to the college football playoff, and potentially make some noise there. You don't want to draw too many conclusions 2 weeks in. Last week I said 1,000 times you don't want to draw too many conclusions from week 1. Okay, now it's week 2, so you're 1/6 of the way through the regular season, which sounds crazy to say it that way, but it's still only week 2. And we'll know a lot more after the Wisconsin game. We'll know a lot more after the trip to Michigan State in early October. But I think I've seen from this defense more or less what you would expect to see. It wasn't perfect today by any means. It was a little sloppy. There just so many. They've got to get the penalties cleaned up. I mean, and I have this feeling, Tony, that the coaches may communicate that to the team this week. In fact, the team, may already be aware that they need to clean the penalties up.
I don't see him running the stairs right now.
Yeah, that's true. Lack of discipline. Sounds like Ohio State's got a discipline problem. It is. I think the defense is clearly improved, and now it's just a matter of, is this a good Ohio State defense, or is this going to end up being a great Ohio State defense when all is said and done?
We have a super chat from Ryan Dawes.
Other
than the stupid penalties, the defense was pretty good.
Yeah, other than the stupid penalties, the defense was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I will talk about the defense because I think this was another instance of Jim Knowles' defense. You saw the identity out there. It's not like the stripes changed or anything like that. They missed some tackles because they're, as I said on the pre-post game, the defense is on more islands today. We knew that was going to happen. We expected that coming in. They were spread out today, so they had to be more on their P's and Q's, and sometimes they weren't. But there were other P's and Q's right there to help them out. Basically, there are other patrons at the bar to knock out the town drunk catching the ball. But it still looked like Jim Knowles. It's an analogy, but it was still the aggressive defense, the swarming defense. Like, yeah, they gave up missed some tackles and whatnot, but it was still 53 yards rushing. They still owned the line of scrimmage, and they were still overall making plays. And guys, as I said at the outset, guys were around the football. And you are taking pictures, Tom. How many pictures have you taken over the last few years, where there may not be an Ohio State defender in the picture? That doesn't happen nearly as much. I don't know if it's happened yet.
I have a bunch from down in Miami a few years ago that are very much like that, and yeah, I don't think I have any from this year of guy just running wide open and free. I mean, what's the worst bust they've had so far this year? Was it literally the first play from scrimmage, and that was just a Josh Proctor tried to jump the route, missed the tackle?
Maybe, I mean, Ronnie Hickman got beat on a seam route that may have been a slot receiver or the tight end, but it was overthrown. So and it wasn't beaten badly. It's just it could have been caught, and it's like this is what we're judging things on again now. Like, well, yeah, but they could have caught it, and it's like, well, but they didn't, and they kept them out of the end zone and forced 12 field goals. So I think you see the identity is still there. It's not like this looked like two different defenses. I think it looked like the same defense just facing different offenses.
It was very much a different offense today. And I mean, Champ Flemings, we should probably spend a moment tipping the hat to him. 10 targets, 10 catches, 105 yards, 50 yards after catch. And he had the long of 58. So he had the one big one and then a whole bunch of short passes where he got, I don't know if he ever caught a ball 10 yards downfield. It feels like pretty much all of them were just little swing passes, and then he broke the one.
Right.
But, he was in there he just constantly was making plays. Boy, speaking of not wanting to make too much of the first 2 weeks of the season and not knowing quite what to make of teams, Marshall, 11 plays, 94 yards, 5:16 off the clock, just took the lead at Notre Dame. Oh, boy.
How much time is left in that?
About 6 minutes left in the game. It's going to be this is the time of the college football season when you are probably most overconfident. Not you necessarily, Tony.
I'm pretty overconfident.
But in general, people are more overconfident that they know what teams are right now than disproportionately overconfident than any other time of the season, because it's like, well, we have one data point now, and so now we know what this team is, or we have two data points, and it's like, well, Ohio State just had a great win over Notre Dame. Well, now if Notre Dame loses to Marshall, is Notre Dame terrible? Is Notre Dame going to finish 5-7, or is Notre Dame just having a little bit of a letdown week after Ohio State had a little bit of a letdown week in some ways. Alabama was unbeatable until they were losing with 15 seconds left today at Texas. So, and Georgia was unbeatable Georgia was the greatest team in the history of college football last week, and then they're up 20-0 on one of those garbage FCS Southern teams. Samford, yes, Samford and Son.
Just Samford by himself. That's why it was such a blowout.
It was. You can't read too much into anything right now with any of these games.
Well, and even if Notre Dame wins this, I think they're still going to drop it. As long as they continue to win, that's good for Ohio State. But I think it's interesting that we are talking about how much better this Ohio State defense is, but we're gauging that on a game against Notre Dame, a game against Arkansas State, and how bad they have been the past 2 years. So it's like we still don't know because we have no really good way to gauge it. None at all, like in terms of opponent, in terms of the control group, or what the relative improvement. Yes, there's relative improvement, but we don't know what that actually means against a good offense.
Well, yeah, we don't know what this team's going to look like against a good offense. When do you think we're actually going to find out what this team looks like against a good offense?
Yeah.
Will we? I mean, Maryland. It might be Maryland is Kevin's answer, and I think that's not a bad answer. I think
Iowa.
I think there's a possibility that we are full of Thanksgiving leftovers before we see this team play a really good offense. I think there's a real possibility of that. So I think like I said earlier, I think I'm comfortable saying that this Ohio State defense is somewhere between good and great, and if you see another week like this against Toledo, and you see another week again like this against Wisconsin, and then Rutgers, and then Michigan State, at that point, if we're walking out of Michigan State and the defense is still giving up 3 yards a carry and all that kind of stuff, I think that's the point where I can say with a decent amount of certainty, okay, this is a, perhaps instead of good to great, a very good to great, or, sort of narrowing down what that looks like. A lot of the advanced analytics systems, SP Plus, for example, Bill Connolly's system, start with preseason rankings and recruiting rankings and all that kind of stuff factored in, and then slowly factor those out. And then with each passing week, and it's usually like 6-7 weeks in when it's just all game data, because that's the point where you really can kind of feel confident in what you've seen on the field, and the data really kind of means something. That's about where I think you're going to know this year.
Yeah, and I think they can go through these first 3 games holding opponents under 100 yards rushing. If you do it against Wisconsin, that means something to me. Even 150, I think it just depends on that yard per carry where they're at. And I think that's going to be the first time we can really start to I don't know. We've already made judgments. We've already made statements about this defense. But if they hold the Wisconsin, like holding the Wisconsin running game would be the most impressive thing they've done this season. Holding a Notre Dame offense that isn't really trying to do anything, they just don't want to get their eyes poked out. It is what it is. It's a different type of offense. Arkansas State is. I just continue to focus my eyes on the stupid scoreboard, the same 3 plays over and over again, and not look at the camera. So I apologize for that. But this was a different opponent, and Toledo, it's going to be the same. It's that Wisconsin game because you can think you can stop the run until you meet up against a Wisconsin team who probably is probably still struggling with Washington State right now. But it's always a thing. Like if you can stop Wisconsin, then that means something, and that would mean something to me if they hold them to under 100 yards.
I was going to pull up my ESPN football scoreboard, but instead I can give you a Lakewood fall softball update if you'd like.
All right, please do.
Granville currently leading Licking Heights 4-3.
Okay, all right.
Might head over there to try and catch the end of that game later on. Yes, that is the update right now. Is yes, Texas A&M still 7-7 with App State in the third. I mean, Wisconsin up 14-7 on Washington State at half. Georgia up 30-0 on Samford at half. I mean, it's.
Give me those Wisconsin rushing yards, Tom. Because if it's like 46, I'm going to be. Then I'm not going to know what to think when these two teams play.
Wisconsin is 4.1 yards per carry, 24 carries, 99 yards. So.
Not great.
Yeah, it's not great. And how many times have we seen Wisconsin in one of these early season games look terrible, and then I mean I remember 15, 20 years ago now, Wisconsin losing to like Fresno State non-conference. And it's just like, what? How did you? And then they go to the Rose Bowl because that's what Wisconsin does. They just will have a game where they just look like that.
Yeah,
and
it's better to get them game 4 than like game 11.
We have any other questions we want to get to?
A lot of people just talking about the games that are going on right now as we're about 55 minutes into this section of the show. A lot of people want to talk about the Michigan quarterback battle between McCarthy and McNamara, and will a choice be made as Marshall has just intercepted a pass?
Oh, and it's a pick six.
Oh, a pick six for Marshall. Oh, no. Oh, Notre Dame, baby, what is you doing? Oh, no.
A lot of Marshall fans in the crowd.
A lot of green there. Oh, boy.
You're going to be a mean.
Yes. Oh, the poor, sweet little Notre Dame girl. I feel really bad for her because she is going to be a meme, as Kevin said.
Marshall is better than Ohio State. Is that what we're saying?
I mean, they've scored more points than Ohio State, so I don't know what other conclusion you could draw.
Could end up being the same 11-point victory.
Yeah. Again, and let's pump the brakes on making definitive statements on what exactly this means.
Can I jump in? Because I had somebody on Twitter, it was on the message boards, has been not pestering me, but asking me hey, can you just go through and find out what teams are against the spread the week after they play Ohio State? Right now, this week, this season, they're at least 0-1, if this holds true. And it is something I've been meaning to do, and this is why. Mm-hmm. Because of the Ohio State after effects.
Yeah, and there are certain teams that are known for. I have not done the Ohio State study, but there are. When Jim Harbaugh was at Stanford, there was the Jim Harbaugh Stanford effect. Service academies are really well known for the week after you play a service academy, you play like butt. Because you are tired of getting cut blocked. You spent the previous week thinking about a completely different type of offense, and they're just miserable to play, and you can have a miserable hangover afterwards. So, yeah, that's I think another one.
Ask the 2014 Ohio State football team.
Yes, rather famously, only lost once, and it was the week after the Navy game. Didn't have a great time playing Navy either.
There are no good times playing Navy.
I have a text from South Florida informing me that there's a photo of Mike Hall that I should be discussing. So we'll have Tony. We're going to make it a double shot today, double shot of the game. Boy, that sounds like a really sponsorable segment. I don't know. We'll see. And by the way, this is going to translate great to our podcast listeners. Just assume, sorry, we'll apologize to our podcast listeners that we'll try and make these. This is going to be more of a. We'll show you the picture on the YouTube, but talk about the player involved. The player involved here, Mike Hall. I don't even know which Mike Hall it was because I have a lot of Mike Hall making incredible plays pictures. Oh yeah, diving. Okay, so he's diving and tackling James Blackman on what was like it was a 4th and 1, and 4th and 1, and they came out. Called the timeout. came back out and had James Blackman drop back to try and pass. It was like, boy, that's a choice on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
And then Mike Hall comes in, almost overruns him, and like reaches back and grabs him and throws him down. And I got to tell you, first of all, the celebrations from Ohio State defensive linemen this year, they have been wonderful photo material. A lot of good Mike Hall celebrations. He has been. We talked about him a little earlier, but just to reiterate, he left the game during the second half. Maybe got bumped like a knee to the helmet kind of thing. We weren't completely sure what the situation was, but it sounded like a post game from Ryan Day. Not anything they're super worried about. You may hold him out next week, just to hold him out next week, just to be careful, but that does not sound like anything to be concerned about. Someone else I have a lot of pictures of, Tony. Oh boy. Oh, Caden Curry. We should talk about Caden Curry one more time, because we were excited to talk about the young guys, and we did not get to see very many of the young guys. But oh boy, Caden Curry looked like he might be a thing.
The smartest thing Caden Curry ever did was decide, I don't want to wear 97 at Ohio State, because if he was wearing 97 today, he would have looked like a Bosa, like the third Bosa, because of the way his tackle for loss, just your standard 6-yard tackle for loss on a running play, and really getting upfield quickly. And he's not the biggest guy yet, probably still 263, 255 or something, but he spent much of his high school career playing inside, playing defensive tackle, is accustomed to having offensive line all around him. Now out on the edge, it's a little bit freer for him, but he still has the tenacity of being that interior guy, but is fast enough to handle the edge and just makes plays and makes himself known. And you can't have enough of those guys that just, there he is again. He's done it again. Oh, there's 92 again. There's Caden Curry. This is what we wanted to see in terms of who shows up and then continues to show up. It's to, do it one thing, that's fine. A freshman is going to have a play, but then for a freshman to leave the fourth quarter as the guy people are talking about, that's what you want. That's the fun of the spring game. That's the fun of this game. And I do wonder if he does it again, as we said earlier in the show, playing against Wisconsin, 15 snaps or whatever, that might be too much for him. But at some point, he is going. Don't you think he's going to be a 12 snap a game kind of guy this season?
I think he might be a 12 snap a game kind of guy against Rutgers, maybe against Michigan State, and I think he might be a 20 snap a game guy by November. I mean, I think you might see. I think you're just going to see more and more and more of him, because there are guys on the team who have been steady contributors for a number of years, but have had a number of opportunities and have just never gotten to the. We talked about earlier about Caden Curry kind of climbing the depth chart, climbing the ladder. You've got guys who have been steady, good, solid players, but have never been the wow guy that we're talking about. And, the pitch of our voice goes up when we start talking about him in the postgame. It's just those guys are also there.
Caden Curry.
Yeah.
That sort of thing like that.
That sort of thing, yes. We'll get you some helium to talk about him in a couple weeks. It is, he is someone who just, it feels like you can just kind of tell sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't work, as I think after the Akron game last year, we were talking about Tyleik Williams, and then there's other stuff that maybe goes and slows that down a little bit. But Mike Hall was someone we talked about like that this summer. Still feel like that probably holds up okay. Caden Curry's kind of in that conversation as well. And then, there is some depth there. There's some quality depth there, but man, those second-year defensive linemen are very, very good.
And it's, I guess I'm a little surprised in that the coaches have just moved to them, where it's not the seniority thing, or, the veterans, the seniors just always know where to be. They always do the right thing. So this tells me not only are the sophomores talented, but they're doing the right thing. And so these are guys you can count on. And you need plays to be made. And Jim Knowles knows the young guys as well as he knows the old guys. So everybody has a clean slate. And so there's no – and not that Larry Johnson is playing favorites. Larry Johnson controls who goes out there. But the defensive coordinator and those guys, they talk and they decide what they want it to be. Ryan Day said this week, I have final say in who starts. He made that clear. And so you see this turn to the young guys, it's refreshing, because you just, for so long, you see Well, yeah, the young guys are coming along, but this is still so-and-so's team. This is still so-and-so's role. I'm shocked that Zach Harrison is playing like half the snaps that Jack Sawyer played last week, and more than less than half of what Zach Harrison played last week, or JT Tuimoloau. So I think that should be a positive sign for Buckeye fans, that like the favoritism of whatever. I don't think that's here right now.
Yeah, it does feel like it's like the new generation is here to sort of take over, and that has been, you go back to some of the great Ohio State teams before 2014. Boy, there were a lot of second-year players who were making real impacts there, including on the defensive line. Notre Dame's about to lose this football game. Tyler Buckner just threw an interception. They're now down 2 scores with like 3 minutes left, and Marshall has the ball.
He's not a great quarterback. And now that I think about it, and before, I also didn't think he was a great quarterback. And they don't really have. They've got Drew Pine, who is like the poor man's version of Tyler Buckner.
You know what he's riding right now.
He just threw the pick.
Oh, he did? Well, maybe they should put Buckner back in. He's much better than Drew Pine.
Yeah, well, maybe he should ride the pine. Am I right? Yes, Notre Dame, boy, Marcus Freeman just had a shot. They did a slow motion shot on NBC, which is, Notre Dame state media, and boy, had his head in his hands and looked very upset. And it's like, oh boy, that is starting your career 0-3 at Notre Dame. I can't imagine that many coaches have done that. And I will still buy stock in the Marcus Freeman experience at Notre Dame. I think he's going to end up doing great. But man, oh man, getting outgained on a yards per play basis by Marshall. Like, oh boy, it's not great. Is I guess what I'm saying.
Not a super chat, but maybe Notre Dame should accept the Big Ten's offer now before their stock falls anymore.
Ooh, yeah, should Notre Dame accept the Big Ten's offer right now? I don't know. Maybe Marshall has moved up. It's a border state right there in West Virginia. That's an interesting point where they would fire Marcus Freeman before they give in and be like, you know what, we just better move to the Big Ten because we don't have a good coach. And not that Marcus Freeman isn't a good coach, but I've mentioned this in the past where I was told like Marcus Freeman early on was just in over his head in terms of the logistics of the coordination of everything that goes into being a head coach and delegation issues. And here we are 0-2 this season. You can excuse 0-1 bowl game type of thing. That is what it is. Then you can excuse losing it on the road at Ohio State in a relatively close game. Losing to Marshall at home, that's you not getting your team back up after a loss. That's not you let Ohio State beat you twice. But then I also don't want to give Ohio State all of that credit. Marshall's the team that beat them this week, and they did it, I don't want to say easy, but it wasn't all that hard.
Yeah, and Marshall, I think, is a team that's on the come up, and now I'm going to blank on the name of the Marshall coach, but he was at Alabama before he went to Marshall.
Nick Saban?
It is not, in fact, Nick Saban. But, boy, this would be a great time for Notre Dame to put and for NBC to throw a graphic up on the screen and put with his name. Charles Huff. Thank you, Kevin. Charles Huff came from Alabama. He seems like he might have his stuff together and be getting Marshall on the. Yeah, he might not be in Huntington very long.
Next Notre Dame head coach.
Charles Huff. You heard it here first. Exclusive, must credit Buckeye Weekly podcast. To your point there. When was the last time Ohio State lost to a non-power conference team? Was it Air Force? Have they lost to a non-power conference? I mean,
Air Force was 93.
Air Force was 1990. The Air Force was the Liberty Bowl in 1990. They beat BYU 28-21 in the Holiday Bowl. But see, there's certain stuff I can remember everything, and then it's like Marshall head coach, who I know, he's someone.
Doc?
Yes, it is not. That is not Doc Holliday anymore. No, I can't remember Ohio State losing to a non-power team, and it's just they've come close.
Navy in 2009,
but they beat them. They beat Navy. They beat Navy in 2009. They beat Navy in 2014. They have had, they had close games, like a close game against Cincinnati in 2002. They've had a close-ish game against Ohio University at one point. They had a close-ish game against Toledo, a close-ish game against Bowling Green. But, but they win all of them. You don't lose. You don't lose these games. And that, to me, this is a little concerning where, okay, now you're 0-2, and now what's next for them? Because, boy, I don't know what their schedule looks like. I don't remember them having a particularly murderous schedule
It's
this
not.
year.
That's the problem. And this is shades of Charlie Weiss, shades of Rich Rodriguez, where it's so jarring. Shades of Nick Saban his first year at Alabama. Maybe that is what he'll be, losing to a Louisiana Monroe or whatever, whatever it was. But yeah, this isn't something that I don't know what they were favored by, but I'm sure it was enough that it wasn't outrageous. But you can't lose to Marshall at home. Jim Tressel almost did it in 2004. Still, again, they beat Marshall. This is a concern, but it is also still Brian Kelly's players. And Urban Meyer would say, I always tell coaches, don't say this is the last coach's players. These are your players. And yes, they are Marcus Freeman's players, but we went through the roster, all three of us. There's not a lot of talent offensively for sure. Defensively, they're fine, but they weren't good enough. And I wasn't picking Notre Dame to lose this game, but now I am.
No Notre Dame coach has ever lost their first 3 games to start their career. Yes, Notre Dame just blocked a punt, and then immediately gave up a sack. Oh man, ooh boy.
Marshall's just trying to make this fun for everybody.
Cal is the next team they play, which is Cal is not an offensive juggernaut, but if you're losing to Marshall, boy, I don't know that there are any guaranteed wins on the schedule at that point.
No, boy, that is shocking.
Do we have any other questions? Any other viewer questions?
We're 2:20 into the post game, about an hour 5 into Buckeye Weekly. Everybody's just talking about this game when we're not this isn't the Irish Huddle.
Well, yes. Yeah. If we're done talking about the Ohio State game, should we wrap up? Is that what we want to do?
That was good because you made a statement. You made a very declarative statement there, but you made it sound like it was a question. That was very professionally done.
I like to pretend that others have a say in the show.
So apparently we're done here. So Tony, you traditionally wrap up the show, so I guess you should wrap up the show.
All right, that will do it then for us here. Thank you all for joining us for this entire stream post-game here at the Postgame Huddle. Thank you for joining us here on the Buckeye Weekly podcast. Reminder, as you are watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Please hit the bell to be notified. Also, tell your family. What are you doing? Tell your family. Tell your friends about us. Check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member there if you would like. We are there all the time. So that will do it for me, for Tom, for Kevin, for everybody behind the scenes, Devin, all of us. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you guys later as I see Kevin with the surrender cobra.
Notre Dame just threw another interception, but there's a flag. But that's okay because the podcast's over. Bye, everyone.
See you. Bye.